Good afternoon. Welcome to the 2020 Korean-German Conference on Technology and Standards. Let me introduce myself first. I am Yoo Eun-young, the Master of Ceremony for this conference. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you very much. This Korean-German Conference on Technology and Standards is aimed at bringing together the powerhouse of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, Germany, with its expertise in smart manufacturing, mobility of the future, and other innovative industries, together with Korea to strengthen bilateral standards cooperation, ensure national standards policies and corporate standards strategies of the two countries, laying the groundwork for shaping the future together through Korean-Germany cooperation. This conference strictly adheres to the government's COVID-19 measures and will be held as an online event through live streaming. I thank online viewers for their interest and participation. This conference will begin with an opening ceremony, followed by keynote presentations on technology and standardization in Korea and Germany, and lastly with technology issue presentations. Now with that, before we begin the conference, we're going to invite to the podium Administrator Lee Sung-woo of the Korean Agency for Technology and Standards. Please welcome the administrator with a big round of applause.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to 2020 Korea-German conference on the technology and standard. I am the administrator of the Korea Agency for Technology and Standard under the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy. I am very pleased to be here today, and I would also like to extend my deepest gratitude to His Excellency Peter Winkler, Deputy Head of Mission at the German Embassy, and the Vice President Susanne Burleigh of the Korea-German Chamber of Commerce and Industry for gracing this event with their presence amid the COVID-19 pandemic. I would also like to express my sincerest appreciation to Chairman Lee Sang-jin of the Korean Standard Association for his immense support for organizing this conference. I would also like to extend my heartfelt thanks to today's keynote speakers, Dr. Matthias Hartel, Head of Business Development at BMW Korea, Mr. Lee Jung-jun, CTO at LS Electric, and Dr. Axel Thielmann, Deputy Head of the Competence Center Emerging Technology at the Fraunhofer ISI. And my special thanks goes to the experts from Korea and Germany for your invaluable time here today. Last year, as you noticed, we established ministerial level meetings for industrial cooperation between Korea and Germany. and launched as dialogue for promoting cooperation in the area of standardization. As a regular joint meeting, which both of national standardization bodies lead, the S dialogue has been mandated to enhance standardization cooperation at the national level. Since the launch of the S dialogue, Korea and German standard experts have closely worked together in standard development in the field of smart manufacturing and the future mobility. I know so far active discussions have been made for standardization by utilizing various ICT tools such as virtual web meetings. Regrettably, the second regular dialogue was not held yet this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but I'm sure the second S dialogue will be soon able to be held in Germany as planned next year. In the face of a global COVID-19 crisis, the world needs solidarity and cooperation amongst the countries of our world to overcome the current challenges and brace for the post-COVID-19 era. I think it is crystal clear that Korea and Germany are undoubtable powerhouse of global manufacturing. Therefore, if we can put joint effort on enhancing further our trust and friendship, I do believe that two nations will be able to achieve a sustainable goal for the shared prosperity. In that sense, Korea is now trying to intensify its capability, particularly through its strengthening the competitiveness in the material, part, and equipment industry. In doing so, Germany must be an indispensable partner in Korea. Given the uncertainty in the world economy, Korea and Germany must reinforce our solidarity and cooperation further than ever before to prevail over this global crisis together. With commitment to commercializing autonomous driving from 2022, Germany has been pushing forward manufacturing innovation under the Industry 4.0 while pursuing standardization in the key industries such as a smart factory and the future mobility. Harnessing the innovative infrastructure in ICT and manufacturing, among others, Korea has likewise been preparing for digital transformation of economy by focusing its efforts on standardization, the key growth engine industry, as I mentioned above. This conference aims to facilitate discussion amongst Korean and German experts to take stock of the progress made in standardization for smart manufacturing and the future mobility, while exploring our path forward. I hope that this conference will serve as an opportunity for our experts to share their technologies and experience in the standardization and seek ways for further cooperation so that our standardization activities gains greater impetus moving forward. In this era of new normal, where new criteria or standard becomes more rapidly obsolete, our bilateral cooperation in standardization will be more increasingly important than ever. In this vein, I'm convinced that standardization is brought up on this conference will pave the way for the future growth of the cutting-edge industry in both Korea and Germany. Furthermore, I hope that these standards will be developed into national standards and eventually into international standards so that they can lay a solid cornerstone for supporting the manufacturing prowess of our two great nations. I think all the experts being here today are the central force behind the standard cooperation between Korea and Germany. Going forward as well, the catch will spare no effort in supporting and promoting standard cooperation between Korea and German industry. In closing, I would like to thank our offline participants gathered here today, as well as online participants joining from Germany for their invaluable time. I wish you all the best and good luck, and I wish all of us being here be healthy from the COVID-19. Thank you.
네, 국가기술표준원
Thank you very much. That was opening remarks by the KATS administrator, Sung-woo Lee. So once again, a big hand, please. Thank you very much. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to invite Deputy Ambassador Peter Winkler in German Embassy of Korea. So now let us welcome him with a big round of applause.
The Administrator Lee Seung-woo, Mr. Chairman Lee Sang-jin, all participants, experts, offline, online, thank you very much for inviting me to this very important conference. I'm very grateful that I can speak to you today. As you can see, I'm not Ambassador Reifenstuhl, I'm his deputy. Ambassador Reifenstuhl is actually in self-isolation. He would have liked to be here, but after traveling abroad, he's observing a kind of standardized procedure which Korea introduced, and so there is already a direct link or an indirect link to this conference, actually. But I'd like to convey all his regards today. Certainly, today's forum is more about the technical and technological standards and not so much of other standards. Standards such as in future mobility, in artificial intelligence and IoT, and the fourth industrial revolution, or Industry 4.0, as we used to say. In all these areas, digitization plays an ever more important role. It is revolutionizing our economy. Smart products are tailored precisely to the customer's preferences, new business models arise, value networks across countries and across companies forge and foster synergies. However, this tremendous potential can be utilized fully only if we succeed in building international cooperation and reaching international standards. Digitization and standardization are therefore two sides of one coin. And this is particularly true in times in which calls for technological decoupling are becoming more vociferous. I remember a study conducted in Germany a few years ago analyzing the opportunities and the challenges of international cooperation in the field of Industry 4.0. Experts from South Korea, from Japan, from China, from the US, from the UK, and from Germany participated. And among others, the researcher wanted to know the expert's opinion about the rate of progress on standardization. So this was almost 4 years ago. In 4 countries, the majority of the experts answered the rate of progress is just right. And now guess, there were 2 other countries where the answers were a little different. 80% of the respondents from Germany and 90% of the respondents from Korea thought the progress was too slow. Since then, our 2 countries have come a long way, and I think considerable progress has been made, among others through one of those conferences, actually, and this is not the first one we are having here. There are several good reasons why there has been progress and why Korea and Germany should, and they are joining hands in this field. First, according to the Global Innovation Index 2020 and compared to 130 other countries, both Korea and Germany rank among the top 10 of best performing innovators worldwide. Korea and Germany have been valuable partners in R&D, in science, in technology and industry for quite a while. Second reason, both Germany and Korea are export-driven economies with a major focus on manufacturing. As an exporter of industrial equipment, which is increasingly linked to digital technology as part of Industry 4.0, but also with a century-old tradition in car manufacturing, Germany substantially benefits from common standards and compatible technological interfaces. And Korea is a very close partner in this endeavor, as it is advancing the policy on the Fourth Industrial Revolution and most recently also on the Digital New Deal, and Administrator Yi just mentioned this, how far we have come there. So there is a lot of synergies in this field too. The best way to counter technological decoupling is per definition the preservation and the development of common technical and regulatory standards. They are indeed a major contributor to the formation of global supply chains and the emergence of business opportunities. Let me add a third reason, which is a little bit a broader one. The rise of digital giants and the rapid development of artificial intelligence are really calling for regulation and standard setting. And not only in the technological sphere, but also in terms of ethics, of freedom, of law enforcement, data protection, taxes, etc. If we want to protect our democratic values, we need to focus also on these aspects. And as a like-minded country and a leader in digital technology, Korea is certainly a natural partner. Dear participants, I think all those points speak for themselves. Against this backdrop, it is quite natural that our two countries have intensified the collaboration in the area of Industry 4.0 with a view to defining global norms and standards in various workshops, in these conferences, etc. And at the beginning of this year, we officially launched a digital dialogue involving our governments and industry, and I think we've also made some progress so far. One potential project of future cooperation we could think of, and which also circles around common rules, around standards, is Gaia-X. With Gaia-X, the German government has launched a European-wide initiative for a safe, for a secure, and for a trustworthy data infrastructure. And also in Korea, discussions on how to foster secure digital ecosystems that meet the highest standards of digital sovereignty, while on the other hand promoting innovation, have gained momentum too. So as you can see, the range of cooperation is really broad, and I think this conference also sets a very clear signal into this aspect. I wish you a very good discussion, and I'm pretty sure that this conference will be quite successful and will broaden our bilateral cooperation even further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful speech. 주한 독일 대사관 페터.
Thank you. That was Deputy Head of Mission at the German Embassy of Seoul, Peter Wankler. Next, we're going to invite to the podium Chairman and CEO of KSA, Sang-Jin Lee. Please welcome Chairman Lee with a big round of applause.
In Korea, good morning in Germany. My name is Sang-Jin Lee, Chairman and CEO of Korean Standardization Association. First of all, I'd like to thank Administrator Lee Seung-woo of the Korean Agency for Technology and Standard for hosting this 2020 Korea-German Conference on Technology and Standards. I'd like to express my appreciation to His Excellency Peter Winkler, Deputy Head of Mission at the German Embassy Seoul, and Vice President Susanne Burleigh of the Korea-German Chamber of Commerce and Industry for enlightening this conference with the remarks. Also, it's a great honor to have Dr. Matthias Hartel, Dr. Jung-Jun Lee, and Dr. Axel Tillmann as keynote speakers on technology and standard initiatives. The leading country of the Industry 4.0 and digital transformation, the nation with hidden champions, the small but strong enterprises armed with technology competitiveness and innovative mindset, the powerhouse in manufacturing and new technology. These are all different descriptions that refer to Germany. Germany is South Korea's most important European trading partner, with a bilateral volume of $28.5 billion in 2019. Since resuming diplomatic relations in 1955, we have accumulated much experience and made substantial progress in the various aspects of the economy. And I believe that the cooperation in standard through Korean-German Standard Dialogue, which was initiated last year, can further deepen and broaden this economic cooperation. Currently, we are facing an unprecedented crisis globally, and at the same time, living in the era of digital transformation. Digital transformation is a key element that enables both digital economy, which has brought more values to the existing industry structures, and the virtual economy, which has surfaced as the new paradigm in the COVID-19 era. It's the standard that has opened up this digital transformation era, as standard is the criteria for allowing technologies such as IoT, artificial intelligence, to be super connected, super converged, and super intelligent. Also, in the world where the industry boundaries are broken and everything is connected, standards are the key to the ensuring compatibility, interoperability, and scalability. Against this backdrop, for us to effectively respond to the unpredictable emerging global crisis and ensure sustainable development in the digital transformation era, we need the ties of international solidarity that standardization can bring. In this regard, our ability to work together toward a common goal, especially in the face of crisis, has been even more relevant and vital than ever. Since last year's standard dialogue, experts between two countries have actively engaged in collaboration works in the standard development in the field of smart manufacturing and the future mobility. Now, the only thing left to do is to generate a rich harvest in practicable and concrete ways, and in particular, capture the essence of our bilateral cooperation, taking the lead together and the way forward. Following my address in last year's launch of S Dialogue, I am very pleased to be back here to the conference to continue the discussions on ways to further enhance the cooperation between the two countries. I firmly believe that this conference, which is the effort to bolster tangible cooperation, will add a momentum to our relevant activities in standard development as we successfully embarked on the mutual collaboration platform. Having said that, I hope that this conference can be fully availed as the opportunity for experts in two countries to share their knowledge on technology and experiences in the standardization and find the way going forward together. I wish all the best to all participants from Korea and Germany, and hope all of you to be safe and healthy. Thank you.
네, 회장님 좋은 말씀 감사합니다.
Thank you very much. So that was the Chairman and CEO of KSA, Sang-Jin Lee. Thank you very much. And now, last but not least, we're going to invite Susan Burleigh, AHK Korea Vice President. Please welcome her with a big round of applause.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to attend this 2020 Korean-German Conference on Technology and Standards. It's my first time to be here, and I especially like the motto, taking the lead together. Korea and Germany are countries with close relations for a very long time. And as Korea and Germany are both experts in technology and are leaders in innovation, this relationship is a very fruitful one and can be even more for the future. It is always a very efficient way to adopt new technologies or develop standards by learning from each other. And as Korea and Germany both have their strength, this conference is one of these occasions where experts share their knowledge, exchange opinions, and increase the level of understanding between the two countries. If I look at the agenda, you can find some of the most interesting and important topics in the industry of today. If it is Industry 4.0, or autonomous driving, or smart factories, and I'm sure that all the experts here today can contribute to these topics in the most sophisticated way. But not only the sharing of knowledge is important, it is also the discussion which adds value to these topics. That's why these conferences are so important, especially in our extraordinary times of COVID-19, where the opportunities of exchange are very challenged. Speaking about standards, standards are a way to make things easier, and easier in the way to exchange things or to make them more compatible. In this sense, the conference of today is a good platform for Germany and Korea to share examples of standardization, which can bring us also closer to a mutual understanding. In this sense, I wish you a successful conference and want to thank KATS and KAS to host this conference, and also the presenters to give an insight in their companies. And all the good for you, stay healthy. I think this is one of the most important things these days. Thank you very much. 감사합니다.
Thank you, Ms. Suzanne Burleigh, for your wonderful speech. 네, 한독상공회의소 수전
That was Vice President of AHK Korea. Thank you very much for your time. Once again, Korean-German Conference on Technology and Standards 2020. We're going to now begin keynote presentation sessions in earnest. The first presenter will speak about the future of mobility. The speaker is the head of business development from BMW Korea, Dr. Matthias Hartel. Please welcome the speaker with a big round of applause.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much, Mr. Lee Sang-jin, Mr. Lee Sang-yi, His Excellency Peter Winkler, and Susanne for welcoming me to this stage here and talking about the future of mobility. It's a, can I take it off as well? It's a very broad topic, I would say, the future of mobility. And in preparing to this presentation, I also thought about the current situation of Corona. And does it anyhow change the way we think future of mobility is going on? And to be honest, I think Corona is a temporary effect. It slows some of these developments down or creates a little bit of a setback, but it doesn't change the overall tendency. So I would like to start with a little bit of the trends that we see in the automotive industry all around the world, and then showing the specific trends that we will see in the future going on. And closing on, then I would like to reach out for the topic of standardization so that we kick off this conference like this. So what are the global trends? We identified 6 global trends: the environment and the changing climate. And connected to this, new energy and new energy potentials. We understand that fossil energies are not available until forever, so we have to think about renewable energy in production and propulsion. Another trend is urbanization, and Corona has there a little bit of a setback because people are not moving so much into the urban spaces anymore, but I think after Corona, we will see this trend again going on. By 2030, round about 60% of the world's population will live in cities. And this creates another environment in the city. It creates more density. You see it already in Asia more than you see it across the world, in Europe and Germany. But the same trend is everywhere. Connected to this is the change in culture and health. People who are living closer together, They're thinking about how can we create, or how can we go on mobility on a different way. And it's about untagged mobility, yes, and it's about a different kind of a lifestyle. You use different kind of mobility, individual mobility facilities. And of course, this health topic is also about CO2, about fleet regulation, because the more you live together, sometimes air and the industrial, let's say, industrial situation creates a different air ambience in the environment, and people become aware of this. So health is a big topic. And politics and regulation, they realize this, and we see it across the world. Politics and regulation change the rules of how we can operate in the automotive industry. And it's a good thing, actually, because it creates a better environment. And the last and very important trend is digitalization. Here in Asia, it's even more visible than anywhere in the world. But digitalization is everywhere, and the mobile phone is part of the hand, so to say. I left the mobile phone actually on my desk, but that's the only time that I leave the mobile phone. So how does this change our automotive industry? We identified 4 pillars. And actually, during lunchtime, we already discussed some of these pillars, but it's clear: automated, connected, electrified, and service are these pillars that we see will change the automotive industry in the future. Let's go a little bit more detailed into each one of these topics. Of course, automated is about autonomous driving. Cars that drive by themselves. But it's a transition period right now. Currently what we see is that some, let's say, use cases are better fit for autonomous driving than others. In the streets, in the urban places, it's about parking, automated parking, finding solutions for automated parking. Then if you are still in the urban environment, there are highways, but which have a certain similar amount of velocity where the cars all drive in the same direction. This is a perfect fit for automated driving because it's more or less, you don't have traffic coming across you, so it's easier to develop these kind of things. 5G, of course, is a technology that enables all of this. And because there's a lot of data to manage, you need artificial intelligence and machine learning to cope with that. And continuing with this are regulatory changes. Safety remains the utmost priority, and different countries now take different speeds in the way they change the regulation in order to come to an automated driving level. The second major topic is connectivity or connected. And from our understanding, there are 3 dimensions. The first dimension is that the car is up to date. You know, in the automotive industry, we have development cycles of around about 5 to 7 years. It's a long time to develop something like this. And if you think about the architecture behind it, it's even longer development cycles. But we are used to different development cycles in other industries, especially in software. So we change the hardware from the software and try to keep the car up to date over the air as often as possible, so that you get traffic indication up to date, that you understand where is the next electric fuel station for you, electric charging station for you, things like that. You keep it up to date, you keep it up to speed, and this is a thing that we develop more and more and faster. So you change hardware from the software. This is the first point. The second point is car-to-car and car-to-X connectivity. So the car communicates with other cars. We have one use case where a car drives by a free parking spot on the side. It sees the parking spot is there, and it can tell all the other cars via cloud systems there's a free parking space. So the next car can use this and say, okay, I can park there. But the even better thing is if the parking space communicates with all cars and says, I'm free, you can use me. So this kind of a use case is now created with the car-to-X and car-to-car connectivity. The last point is about all these services around this. Since your car knows where you are, knows what's around it, that you create new use cases and new service cases all around this, and we call it car-to-service. It helps the security, it helps the information, it keeps you up to date. It's like you walk through the streets and see everything around it, but the car is telling it you via new messages. The third part is electrified. And electrification, of course, starts with e-mobility, so cars which drive electrically. And again, like autonomous driving, it's a transition period right now. There are societies, there are customers, there are countries moving faster, and some who are moving slower. At BMW, we call this the power of choice, meaning that we can offer to everybody whatever he would like at this certain amount of his time or of his lifetime. So the power of choice would be, you can, for example, buy an X3 as a gasoline engine, as a diesel engine, as a plug-in hybrid, which combines the best of both worlds, or as an electric car, which we will also bring to the Korean market in the future. And this is clear, it will be a trend moving up to electric mobility. It's very clear that this trend is going on. The question is when and when is the exact timing that it shifts, but it's very clear that there's a clear demand and curiosity of customers driving electric cars. And it's a good thing because it's a different way of driving. If you drive an electric car, it feels more dynamic actually, so it fits perfectly to our brand, but also looking into the future, it's more environmentally friendly. But it's not only the hardware again of the car, it's also how can you get the energy into the car, and is the energy sustainable or not? It's again what we talked about in the trend in the beginning. If the energy is not sustainable, then you don't really gain a lot in terms of the environmentally friendliness. So you have to think about what kind of, how is the energy developed, and what do you do with the batteries once they have reached a certain age? Because at one time, the batteries will have a certain age. So what we've done as a pilot project here in Korea is the so-called EcoPunk project. We have used the batteries of the i3, which in some cases had a certain age, and we used them and made it like a power bank for the mobile phones, but a bit bigger power bank so that it can charge cars, but it can charge also other things. So these are new, let's say, tendencies also which develop around the field of mobility. It's about the energy and sustainability. And the last part here is about bringing the energy to the car in terms of the infrastructure. And infrastructure here is about having charging stations available wherever you need it and wherever the customers are needing it. And one thing that we've done also with the i3 at an early stage, but we have to think about it in the future as well, is installing charging stations. We did it at that time with Imat, but thinking in the future as well, where do our customers charge the cars, and where do we need them to charge the cars? So the infrastructure of electrification is very crucial in order to make this happen. The last pillar is about services. And this is one of the effects that we see the biggest setback from Corona right now. The so-called on-demand economy, there's a setback, but as I said in the beginning, I don't think that the setback will maintain for a longer time. I think the setback is just temporarily. And the in-demand economy, you can separate it in the kind of use cases again. It's basically, it combines the mobile phone with the car and your need from coming from A to B. And you can either use it like today, a taxi. Kakao Taxi is one of these possibilities. You book a taxi or whatever kind of Uber, or in other markets we have our Now portfolio as well. And you book this via the mobile phone, and then you go to the specific place that you want to go. You can go with the from A to B, but also with a car that you drive by yourself. So this is about shared mobility, which right now people don't want to do so much because they don't want to drive in a car that somebody else has driven before. But before Corona, and I will be sure that after Corona as well, it will work again very well. So you drive the car by yourself and you book it in advance with the mobile phone. And then there's a combination. You want to go from A to B. You want to drive the car, but you want to use different facilities. Multimodality, we call this. And the multimodality is you take public transportation and combine it, and you all book it again from A to B via an app or whatever facility you have. And this, our solution there from our joint venture with Mercedes-Benz is Reach Now. It's a possibility that you book the entire journey. And the last 2 points are about connected to, you are now at point B and you want to park there. Where do you park? That's a facility that the on-demand economy offers you as well. Or where do you charge? You book the charging place online in advance, and then you know where it is, and all this is handled via mobile application. It's a quite simple thought from the way you're doing it, but the execution and making sure that it all works is not so easy, but it works, and there are new industries coming up more and more. The second part of the services is about the energy service. And there you think about what can give the car back to you. So the car is like a big battery, and it can fill back the grid. So this kind of an idea is also available that you with standards of charging, you can charge in both directions. Charge the car and charge it back. And again, also thinking about what do you do with the second life of the car. So these are, let's say, in very roughly noted in the short keynote speech, the key 4 pillars, the ACEs. And if we move now on, that was before for the technology, now we talk about the standardization. I think what is very crucial, moving ahead, and that's why I appreciate the invitation to this conference so much. We see different ecosystems now merging together, be it the charging industry, be it the traffic, be it all the data communication, be it the car itself. Every of these ecosystems are now trying to communicate and move together. The more standard we have this, the better it is in order to develop seamless solutions and then to also do it interregionally. From Korea to Germany to the world, from Germany to Korea to the world, in all these directions. This is the key opportunity. The better, it was before, let's say, only about the technology and the car, and the better it is standardized, the better it is for the customer. But now with these ecosystems around, the complexity is even higher, and it's even more need for clear communication protocols, clear plugs, everything that needs to be there, what can be standardized, the better it is. This brings me to the end of my short presentation. I'd like to thank you for your attention. Are there any questions?
We will have a Q&A session later.
Oh, okay,
on.
good. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your very informative speech. 네, 글로벌 트렌드.
So sustainable mobility trends he actually boiled it down to the word ACE. So thank you very much once again to the speaker. Now, where should Korean smart factories head to the future? This is a topic that will be introduced by the CTO of LS Electric, Mr. Jung-Jun Lee. Let's please welcome CTO to the stage with a big round of applause. Good afternoon. As was introduced, I am Chongjun Lee from LS Electric. Well, actually, I've been working at LG for quite a long time, especially for the industry area. So there was actually a transition from LG to LS in 2003. And in March of this year, we were reborn as LS Electric. So the name of the company changed a couple of times. So I've been working at the company for about 30 years, but the names of the company have actually gone through a lot of changes over the last 3 decades. So I understand that we'll be talking not so much about the high-level keynote topic, but I'll be specifically talking about smart manufacturing innovation, especially focusing on AAS and what will be the actual application-related issues when AAS becomes available in the market. Are there any solutions that we can seek? That's the type of a topic that I want to be dealing with today. There are many manufacturing companies operating in Korea. For example, Samsung and LG. These are large corporates and large conglomerates, as well as mid-tier companies as well. But just like Germany, in Korea, we're currently pursuing Industry 4.0 strategy to provide a basis for manufacturing. And we really want to focus on providing more support for the SMEs because they're the foundation of the manufacturing industry. So there's a task force under the Ministry of Venture ICT. There are different initiatives that are undertaken by the government ministry and also various standardization related initiatives undertaken there. And that is the topic that I want to deal with you today. If I look at the German case for Industry 4.0, the testbed project as well as pilot projects are currently overseen by LNI. If you go to their websites, there are about 200 different initiatives and projects over there. What's really interesting is that there are ongoing 200 pilot projects, and the progress as well as the outcomes and the results of the progress are made available to the public upon request. So that was very appealing, especially for the SMEs. They don't have to put so much investment. So for example, these SMEs will be able to gain a better access to this vast amount of information because such outcomes of the initiatives are widely open to the public upon request. So that was very impressive indeed. So I want to especially focus my talk on the ICT manufacturing plant. And I hope that Korean SMEs as well will be able to gain a lot of assistance from the government and also become a stronger foundation for the manufacturing sector going forward. On the left side of the slide, you're looking at the future of the smart factory. This is published by IEC. They release 2 to 3 rounds of white papers a year and provides a pathway for the standardization activities at a very high level. So future of the smart factory, this is Industry 4.0. So there was a discussion on what the standardization should look like in the future. So whether it is Digital 4.0 or Industry 4.0, the most critical thing is that starting from data generation, there has to be communication protocols linking to standardization. So all in all, what's really important here is to collect data from all assets in a very standardized and systematic way. And once you have that data, you need to work to transform that into information. And then it has to become a meaningful data. So there has to be that conversion layer to make that data more meaningful to the users. And as a next step, based on this knowledge that's accumulated, you use that to inform your decision-making process to improve your efficiency and also enhances the competitiveness of the manufacturing sector and creating benefits for improving manufacturing competitiveness. Under the Ministry of SME and Venture, the task force, which has been established, is providing a lot of support for the SME promotion, and the initiatives are currently underway in 3 different phases. The first phase began from 2014, and up until this year, 2020, about 26,000 plants have become smart factories. Well, the first step towards transitioning to smart factories was taken. So we've gone through level 1 and level 2, that's about data measuring, and you move to an upper level of advancement to level 3, 4, and 5. Most of the projects are currently in the stage of level 1 or level 2. Maybe it's installing MES to improve the data set for efficiency gains. So most of the projects have been pretty much concentrated in level 1 and 2. Because SMEs are not like large companies, which are very advanced in technology, it's very difficult for SMEs to be able to collect the right data. So collecting data and automating them, that's quite a difficult task. And you need to have that infrastructure first, and then you can build on that basis to move on to level 3 and 4. So the initiatives thus far have been very much concentrated on level 1 and 2, as I mentioned before. And this innovation task force is now looking at phase 2, which is to begin from this year. Very much focusing on mid-tier companies and their promotion of smart factories. So there's a lot of discussion underway to move the companies up from level 2 to level 3. So in that process, Korea AI manufacturing platform, shortly known as KAMP, was released. So that's about collecting data in the cloud and having third parties provide that data from the cloud to deliver benefits to SME plants. You're collecting data on the cloud, and you have to have the right platform, but that's easier said than done. And working that through private cloud service providers, it really requires a lot of investment and also extensive amount of resources as well. That is why this platform called CAMP, Korea AI Manufacturing Platform, is being provided by the task force. And many SMEs data are to be collected onto the CAMP and to have collaboration from the third-party service providers to deliver benefits. That would be the main purpose of phase 2. And there will be phase 3 starting from 2022, data coming from SMEs or large companies or large-scale enterprises, as well as global companies. This data would be provided through a transactional channel. And based on that CAMP platform that I mentioned before, they can use that platform to develop more complicated services based on HPC. This is mainly to improve the competitiveness of SMEs. So again, the initiatives taken by the Korean government is comprising 3 different phases. We're now in phase 2. And as I mentioned before in slide 1, SME plants really have a lot of difficulties in collecting meaningful data. So data collection is one critical pillar here. Then do you just go about collecting data? Does it have to be done in a structured manner? Yes, of course, you can do that using a software. As long as you have a software, that's possible. But whether that data is really meaningful, that's another issue. Let's say that you have MES collecting data and improving efficiency. Those system integrators, SIs, for example, may not be around tomorrow. They may go out of business. And the production lines have to be very flexible in changing their setups. But whenever they have to change their setup, it really requires a lot of investment. So SMEs are complaining a lot because of the high costs involved. So let's say that you have a company that comes up with a unique proprietary system, but then you have that risk of having a lock-in effect because that unique system cannot be used by external stakeholders. That is why all data that is created from a plant would have to go under the platform called AAS so that information can be exchanged in a meaningful manner. And even if there's another add-on system, the third party can come to the AAS to use that as a standard. So SMEs, if they really want to focus on sustainable management of the data, they have to follow standards. And what Germany is currently doing at TC65, the AAS will be a very critical element to focus our efforts on going forward. So this is the first step for smart manufacturing. You need to have AAS, and standardized data is to be collected in a structured manner. And this is a photo that's taken from our own plant. You have these simple machines, and you put these AAS shells on top, and each unit of the AAS, whether they're components or inverters, all these different parts and components, as long as they're AAS compatible, then this data can be connected to a higher level, for example, SCADA system or cloud system, or other third-party systems. And the data will go on top of that layer as a standardized data for use with other external stakeholders. So at the Innovation Task Force, I understand that the task force is very much going to focus its efforts on developing AAS as a requirement. I believe that AAS will probably become a mandatory requirement starting next year. Then you may wonder, what's the definition of AAS? What do we need to do to be AAS compliant? And so many companies, well, actually, we actually conducted a POC, a proof of concept project, and this was applied to 2 of our plants to understand whether AAS is fully functioning on our shop floors. So for SMEs plants to become sustainable, they have to base their work on standards. And that is the right path forward. But there are issues and challenges that we should be aware of. From the applicability of AAS, true that there are many standards available, but standards are currently in development. They're not fully published yet. And also for each unit machine, for you to have the AAS linked to that unit machine, the machine builders will first need to put that data and information in the AAS. When you're, for example, making a component or a part for the machine, the component level information would have to be provided. So whether it is a unit machine or a component builder, these equipment providers have to be AAS ready as well, so that tangible results can be produced. So let's say whether you're trying to build a new plant or to introduce the AAS to the existing plant, you will pretty much undergo these difficulties. And I wanted to present some solutions for you. So in the first scenario for green factory, green field, now you have this AAS shell for each component or for each machine or for each line or for the whole shop floor. This AAS layers will have to build up first and then link to the high-level third-party service providers so that there's a full linkage of the data across the system. But this is not the current configuration for now. So what I can recommend is that you need to have at least OPC UA enabled PLCs and edges because OPC UA is very much compatible with AAS in terms of data, and we can update that for the greenfield new investment cases. And once this becomes possible, then we can have AAS convergence at a high level and have AAS enable. And this is a scenario that would be applicable for that. And once you have the communication for OPC UA, you have OPC UA at the southbound, and you collect them at the gateway. You connect them up to the AAS converter function, transport that information there, and at the top, you can just simply convert that to AAS. And the third-party service providers can can start their work based on the data there. So you need to gather data with OPC UA enabled edge. If you don't have OPC UA installed, then what should you do? There are other protocols that are not OPC UA, but you would have to convert those protocols to OPC UA first. And then you provide that at the top, and then you can convert that to AAS. Can you click the middle arrow here? This is what we did at our company. You have Edge Interact. There are various proprietary protocols over here, whether that is OPC or MPC, and you convert them to standard protocols, and you go through orchestration and communication libraries will be remotely updated. And if you're to, for example, apply that for each line, you use web server called Insight. That's the effort that we're making at our company. And on the right side, you have these AAS functions that will be installed, which could give that representation for the whole shop floor. Let's go back to the previous slide then. A very extreme case is that SMEs are using the PLCs to conduct their manufacturing activities, but PLC sometimes is very old at a certain plant, maybe a PLC that's been used for more than 10 years. Now, if you're trying to, for example, develop a program based on PLC, the source program sometimes doesn't even reside at the plant. So you can't really make any adjustments or tweaks. Or maybe the capacity for the PLC is too optimized, so you can't apply any programming at all. And you would see those real use cases on the shop floor. Then you don't have a choice. You have to replace the PLC. You have to have the PLC that's OPC UA communication enabled. We're also trying to do this because PLC would have the features at a machine unit. It is very important to make your system OPC UA enabled, and you work with the controllers or component makers that they will continue to use AAS information to supply their products. If there's any support provided to them, we wouldn't be needing that support because we're a large company, but for SMEs, it would be very much appreciated. And if there's that support for the SMEs, it would really go a long way for these SME plans to make their plants AAS enabled. So if you look at the SME plants in Korea, what are some of the solutions that they can seek for applying the AAS. As I mentioned before, you need to have data collected, you need to have a standard, and they have to be well embedded into the overall system. And in that regards, I understand there are international standards related discussions underway for AAS. We don't have AAS-enabled environment right now. So for those people who are trying to set up a new environment, a new plant, they will need to understand this well-thought-out improvisation strategies. There's really no right answer here, but on a case-by-case basis, those people who are trying to build a new plant would have to have a strategy for this improvisation. All assets will need to be AAS enabled in terms of data as well as protocol for communication. So going forward, we really will need to make a lot of efforts to boost this initiative to go forward. And with that, I will conclude my presentation. Thank you very much. That was a CTO from LS Electrics, Dr. Chongjun Lee. He talked about how smart factories can be pursued in providing the right assistance and support for the SMEs. He also emphasized the importance of AAS-related standardization.
Thank you very much. And now the next topic is new technology development in Germany, which will be delivered by Dr. Axel Sielmann, the head of Fraunhofer ISI. And he is now connected online.
Good morning from Germany and good afternoon to Korea. Can you hear me?
I can hear you well. So you can begin your speech from now on.
Great. Thank you very much. So thank you very much for this invitation, and I've been asked to prepare a presentation, a speech on new technology development in Germany. And since we are facing global challenges, I extended it somehow to the more and more need to cooperate on a EU or even global level. And it will be more a presentation with the background of the German high-tech strategy. One moment, I hope. Yeah. Okay. German high-tech strategy, where I would like to show how technology and development has developed over time until today, and how it is linked also to EU or international context, and then conclude with a summary. So as motivation, the observation is that the global challenges and large system transitions have to be solved with the support of research, technology development and innovations, RDI. And in this context, we see that the expenditures for RDI are more and more justified and used for the benefit of society and the people. So German policy, but also EU-wide policy, and I think also global policy making, have fundamentally changed over time from a more technology-driven perspective towards a more and more systemic thinking and understanding over the past decades. And the question for me, I try to answer today, is what are the approaches for new technology development in Germany, and how can they be assessed in the EU and a global context? So the German high-tech strategy is a strategic framework of the German federal government and has the aim to involve relevant actors and do coordination. There have been several generations of the high-tech strategy. Every 4 years, there's a new period of the high-tech strategy. And the first 3 phases from 2006 to 2014 have shown that starting with 17 high-tech sectors in the fields of key technology areas and also cross-cutting issues like industrialization of these technologies, in the next phase, there has been a transition more towards a horizontal mission-oriented approach and future projects, so-called 10 future projects, and talking about grand challenges. And in the next phase in 2014 and ahead, there has been also more understanding of innovation, including social innovations. So the society as a stakeholder has been involved as well. In 2006, you see there's a number of high-tech sectors and quite technology-driven perspective technologies, which we are dealing with as well today. So advanced production technologies, you mentioned Industry 4.0, artificial intelligence, and so on. And the point was more focus on cross-cutting issues like how industry and science can work together, how to support SMEs and startups. In the next release in 2010, the high-tech strategy focused more on the global challenges. And you see this movement towards missions, and you see already 10 future projects, among those Industry 4.0, sustainable mobility. In the next phase, 2014, there have been defined 5 pillars and 6 priority areas. And here you see that the civil security, the dialogue with the society and participation of society, also social innovations have been strengthened more and more. So you see a change from technology where, let's say, the sectors are cross-sectional towards something like missions and a challenge-oriented approach where the technologies are cross-sectional. And I think that's what indeed we can observe, that a number of different technologies have to work together. We have seen that in the presentations before, like battery technology, automation, autonomous driving, different technologies helping to solve our future problems of new mobility, of energy transition, and so on. So in the current high-tech strategy 2025, which has been released 2018, 12 missions have been formulated. And the high-tech strategy 2025 is a strategic umbrella program where the mission-oriented approach is linking these R&I activities to the special societal challenges. And these missions in Germany are led by the federal ministries. But there is no separate body for that. So we have our Ministry for Education and Research, our Ministry for Economic Affairs, and other ministries who are dealing with these missions. And the missions are financed from departmental funding programs, but there's no dedicated project for certain missions. So they are formulated as cross-ministerial goals and define focal points, milestones for research and policy for the years ahead. So here you can see the 12 missions at a glance. It's no time to go into more depth into all these different missions, and therefore in the next step I would like to focus or look at certain mission. You see that they are addressing the healthcare, sustainability, mobility, also industries 4.0, but also here below the technology base for the future, for future competencies, like putting artificial intelligence into practical application. You see that behind it there are large system transformations, coordination is needed. These transformations need enormous amount of budgets, of infrastructure built up, and of course new production technologies. One example is the mission to build up battery cell production in Germany. And here the mission is formulated as, in order to ensure technology sovereignty and a maximum coverage of the battery value chain, we want to support the development of our own capacities for battery cell production in Germany. But by far, not only certain ministries like the Federal Ministry for Education and Research are related to this mission with the so-called roof concept Forschungsfabrik. This includes R&D programs, clusters, and infrastructures, but also other ministries, and even on a EU level, initiatives are starting. The Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy is supporting the so-called important projects of common European interest, which are projects which try to support on the level of billions of euros the industry to build up infrastructures competencies in new areas which are important for the society. Currently, there are 2 initiatives for IPSAs on battery technology. There will follow further initiatives on hydrogen ecosystems and so on. Just some few words to the German Forschungsfabrik batteries, or the roof concept batteries from the Federal Ministry for Education and Research. There, 3 modules are mentioned from materials to cells processes and cell production. And we do not have only these bottom-up technology programs, but we more and more have things like thematic competence clusters, which try to solve certain problems like new production with digitalization, entering artificial intelligence into production, or topics like solid-state batteries. And cross-cutting topics like green batteries and concepts of battery use. Those initiatives are funded, as you can see, with half a billion to billion euros, so large initiatives. Besides that, coming back to the high-tech forum, there's also an advisory board, which is a central committee and has a task to provide recommendations for implementing and actioning the federal government's research policy. It's chaired by the Federal Ministry of Education and Research, and the co-chair is Professor Neugebauer, which is the head of our Fraunhofer Gesellschaft, the Fraunhofer Society. Our institute, Fraunhofer ISI, is supporting this with consultation processes as well. And the aspects, of course, which are discussed is the 3.4% target, open science and innovation until sustainability within the innovation system, but also biologization, for example, biological principles for production technologies in the future, or digitalization are topics which are addressed. So I also already somehow connected the national German high-tech strategy to the EU context at the example of the battery technology, but also in general we observe that there's a growing importance to address our global challenges in terms of new missions from a different kind of orientation. And that needs, of course, clearly defined and ambitious goals linking to these societal challenges, which we call directionality. Often also it aims at systemic transformative changes. So huge amounts of billions of euros to be invested into these transformations, and they have clearly cross-disciplinary character. There are some few examples also from studies across the world in different world regions, like strategy for robotic technology in elderly care in Japan, and other initiatives which show these mission-oriented thinking. So on EU level, also we have seen these development from emerging technologies, key enabling technologies, towards including advanced production technologies, and also including digitalization, artificial intelligence, and other technologies, so a so-called convergence of technologies which are of importance in order to address these future challenges. But the direction, as mentioned, has changed, and so also on EU level, already under the current frame program, Europe 2020, a significant amount of money, 60% of the budget, is for contributing to solve sustainable development goals. So another kind of thinking. And also the next program, Horizon Europe, which will start next year, 2021 to 2027, will have at its heart mission orientation with here 5 missions which have been developed and mentioned already from high-level experts and have been announced in 2020 and will be launched beginning of next year. So to summarize and conclude somehow, the high-tech strategy in Germany is a vehicle for R&I policy in Germany, and we see that there has been a shift from this technology-driven perspective with cross-cutting sectors towards a mission-oriented approach and perspective with the societal challenges and societies at the center, but somehow with technologies which are cross-cutting. This new approach, of course, is a huge challenge for coordination. It requires a cross-sectoral perspective and also adequate instruments from policymakers. We see that there is a challenge, let's say, that there could be a lack of ownership of certain missions and strategic processes. In some missions, it works quite well, and some they might have to be improved. Also, these directionality or societal challenges which are at the center require better kind of definition of these mission goals and coordination and strategic planning, both for policy implementation and coordination, but also for the evaluation if it works to implement these missions. And of course, there is a risk of relabeling existing approaches. I hope you have seen that still, of course, we have certain and same ministries which have their budgets and have their thematic fields, but now have to coordinate across these huge and important missions. So it should be more than an umbrella approach in the future, and we've seen that at the example of batteries and mobility, that it's starting already, and these large transformation processes will require these cooperations not only across Germany and Europe, but also globally. And as a last word, maybe, we've seen that there have been a lot of cooperations also with Asian countries. Also, at the example of Korea, we know that there are Korean cell manufacturers already in Europe, and cooperation with those companies across the world for accomplishing these emissions will be important in the future. And therewith, I would like to thank you and hope that I could provide a good overview of the technology development in Germany and across Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Axel Thielmann, for your informative speech. We will have a Q&A session, so could you please stay with us? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Could you please stay with us? We will have a Q&A session shortly.
Okay, it will be right now?
Yes, yes, in a minute.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
네, 지금까지 박사님.
Thank you very much. So that was Dr. Axel Thielmann. Thank you very much for the presentation. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have listened to all 3 of the keynote presentations, and now here is the Q&A session. So if you have any questions, then please raise your hand, and we will bring the microphone over to you.
So if you could please specifically name the person that you're asking a question to. I'm from VDE Korea, Sonyoung Park. I have a question to Dr. Axel Thielmann from Fraunhofer. ISI.
So thank you very much. I listened with great interest to your presentation on the new technology development in Germany. I have two questions. Now, first is, now in Germany, the traditional manufacturers, well, they're quite strong. Now then, for the high-tech industries, now when the high-tech industries are developing, then I wonder whether the traditional industries are shrinking. So then, what would be the way to reach a balance between the traditional industries and the high-tech industries? So this is my first question. And the second question is, now the high-tech industries, we see that the technological development is very rapid. So then along with the technological development pace, then for Germany, let's say from the government or the industry, are there any separate efforts being made to keep up with the pace of the technological development in the high-tech industry?
No, sorry, I did not have any translation.
네, 질문 다시 한 번만.
If you could repeat the questions.
Herstellungsindustrie und Hightech-Industrie harmonisiert werden. Das war die erste Frage. Und zweitens, die Hightech-Industrie, also die Geschwindigkeit der Entwicklung der Technologie ist sehr schnell, so denke ich. Dann gibt es Anstrengungen im Bereich von Regierung oder Privatsektoren, also um diese Schritte zu halten. Haben Sie meine Frage verstanden?
Okay, ich versuche mal auf beides ein Stück weit, auch wegen der Zeit, einzugehen. Definitiv, wir arbeiten auch viel mit dem
Entschuldigen
deutschen...
Sie, aber können Sie vielleicht auf Englisch
sorry. I have to switch again, of course. Yeah, so your question was concerning the conventional industry and the high-tech development. So in Germany, or our institute is also working, for example, with a machine industry association in Germany, and indeed we are facing these problems. We can see that explicitly at the example of the automotive industry and production for these industries. Indeed, the industry has been prepared, especially, let's say, the concrete production industries where logistics and so on plays a role to implement Industry 4.0 in those industries. So the development of software and digitalization of artificial intelligence is now ranked very high and with a high budget. However, we see that there have been other nations, for example, with respect to software and artificial intelligence. United States, USA are quite important players and have to be dealt with. And in production technology, Asian players are very important and have the industry has to orient along those. But the German production industry indeed has grabbed up, taken up these issues and tries to solve that and address those also with international collaborations. So I don't know if I've answered also these the other questions, but yeah, indeed, it's a challenge for the German industry to maintain the conventional position the industry had already, and it's shifting, of course, with those mission orientation and those large programs, especially let's say on artificial intelligence and digitalization. Huge programs and investments have been started also from the German industry. It might be important maybe also to address that in Germany, different than Asian countries maybe, we have a large scene of small and medium-sized enterprises. And that's a huge issue as well for us because very often they are global players. Certain industries with a few thousands of people working there. And therefore, we also see a different challenge. Larger companies have the budget and money to prepare for Industry 4.0 and for all these processes, let's say. And small and medium-sized enterprises need some support very often. And there are issues like which knowledge can be shared, which knowledge cannot be shared, and who has to buy a certain software solution and who can implement its own solution, which of course would be an advantage in this case. Maybe that's a second point I would like to make, that there is a difference in the industrial scene from larger companies, but also a large number of small and medium-sized enterprises with, let's say, somewhat different challenges.
Vielen Dank.
Thank you, Doctor, for your answer. 네, 시간 관계상 한 분.
In the interest of time, we'll be able to take one last or one more question from the floor. So I have a question for Dr. Matthias Hartel from BMW Korea, who's the head of business development. Is it okay if I speak in Korean, or are you getting interpretation services?
He's here.
Your presentation is very, very impressive. Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much.
Yes, my understanding that the security such as the programming and the data is very important in autonomous vehicle. So does BMW have any strategy for such a security in autonomous vehicle? I mean, in future mobility. So if yes, please tell us, give one example, unless this is confidential in your company. Thank you.
So what I can say is that security is a very, very big concern. And this is, of course, the downside if you share data and send data across everywhere, that the topic of security and maintaining that the data in the right, let's say, mode is a key point. I cannot share what's the current, let's say, developments here in this area, but I know that this is a very, very specific part. We had in the past, of course, also the key security that your car doesn't get stolen. This is the first point, but now it's getting with more and more connection. It's about the personal data, it's about the data information of your behavior and whatever is there. This is a key concern, that this remains within a certain let's say, environment, and this is property only of, let's say, BMW or yourself as a user. So this is a key concern there, but I'm not disclosing anything anymore, sorry.
Thank you, Chef, for your response. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor, for your answer. 네, 그럼 지금 이제까지 기조연설을 다 청해
So we've heard from our three keynote presenters, so why don't we give them a big round of applause for their wonderful presentations. Before we begin the next session for technology issues, we're going to take a short coffee break for 10 minutes, and we will begin at 3:45 again. So we'll see you after a 10-minute break. Thank you very much.
네, 한국
We're looking at the standards policies of the two countries as well as corporate standards related strategies of both Korea and Germany. Now we're going to move into the last session of the day, technology issues, securing leadership through standards. There will be specific technical presentations by different speakers. For the first presentation, we're going to invite Executive Ha Hee-tak from Robert Bosch Korea to speak about Bosch vision and strategy for the factory of future. Please welcome Mr. Ha with a round of applause. Hello, as was introduced. I'm the lead of the business development, Hee-tak, Ha Hee-tak, from Robert Bosch. It's Ha Hee-tak. Ha is my last name. The first name is Hee-tak, so it's high-tech. So I will talk about the vision and strategy for the factory of future at Bosch. I'm going to introduce to you our ammunition for promoting this tool. So I'm going to begin my presentation here. So first begin with the first strategy. This is looking at the evolution of the factory. How will factories be evolved in the future? We can just make an analysis or the comparison with how the desks have actually changed over the years. In the last 2 to 3 decades, there have been a lot of changes on the desk. This is a YouTube video that I got. So we have moved from the left side to the right side. When I first joined the company, my senior was actually telling me how to use the fax machine. And he said that, well, I mean, I'm living in a very wonderful era with all the benefits provided by fax, but we don't use fax anymore because we use mobile phones, the internet, which have completely replaced this technology. So 3 keywords over here. Software is eating up hardware. Another characteristic of the evolution is that this has been an evolution, not a revolution. But of course, it can be a revolution if you're not ready for this. And there are 3 benefits that are provided from the evolution, that there are less papers to go around, wires, of course, the number of wires is also going down as well. Also, there's less repetitive work. This is a very prominent feature that we see with the evolution. So please keep that at the back of your mind as I go ahead with my presentation. This is Industry 4.0 project. We're a leader in Industry 4.0 project. In 2012, we released Action Plan High-Tech Strategy 2020. We did this together with Mr. Kargaman, with our Vice Chairman, Siegfried Dice. Worked together to establish this strategy back then. And of course, we have to be responsible for that. So to 280 plants around the world, we have been making a lot of effort to apply Industry 4.0 project. First began with a pilot project. Now this is currently being applied to the global network. So we're in the dissemination phase right now. In 2013, one of the initial projects that was implemented, which is called multi-product line, I want to introduce to you what this project is all about. We have hydraulic valve manufacturing plant. This is for agriculture machines as well as construction machines. The lot size, we want to have, for example, less than 5 lot sizes for all of the products over here. So it's mass customization. There are about 200 different products that are being manufactured across 6 different lines, 2,000 components. And we saw an increase in setup time as well as inventories. There were a lot of efforts needed for managing the floors. But from the point of Industry 4.0, we had a mission to accomplish. That our initial goal was to go for lot size 1 rather than lot size 5 or 6, trying to integrate 6 lines into 1 line. And the technologies were quite simple over here: integration software, sensors, and RFIDs. That's all we used to transition our shop floors. And the output of the project is called multi-products, which was an initial Bosch project, which provided a lot of inspiration for the projects that followed after 2013. So over the last 7 to 8 years, we have made ceaseless efforts to carry out Industry 4.0 project. So we learn the tricks and we summarize our vision for Industry 4.0. That's the definition for the time. But Industry 4.0 in and of itself cannot become the vision of our company. So we decided to redefine the vision for us, which was done 2 years ago, which is Factory of the Future. And of course, the opposite of that would be Factory of the Past. What happened at the past factory? You would have a static line optimized for just one particular product. This is what we see with most of the plants in the country, but the Factory of the Future would have 3 different characteristics here. First is that you have to meet and respond to demanding customer requirements. So you have to have flexibility, you have to have less technologies, plug and play, and mobility, so which is very much well captured in the right part of the slide. You don't have any fixed lines here. For example, the parts and components, they're moving around as they go along, and even the lines can be reconfigured, and they're all on a mobile platform. So it's not the parts and components that they move around, it's the lines, the production lines that they can move. And you have data communication lines and power lines, but you don't have any data connection lines here. And ultimately, we're trying to get rid of the power lines as well. We're not exactly sure how to go about it, but it will be the end. The flex, the induction gas range. I'm sure you've heard that home appliance, the cooking utensils. For example, once you put that cooking utensil on top of that gas oven, then you only get the heat from that particular position. So anyway, this is the vision that we're trying to achieve. And the vision will be achieved in the following 3 different phases. First, beginning with now, which is connected value stream. That's connecting our value stream all across the board, mechatronics, integration capability, and Industry 4.0 concepts will be needed. And then we're now evolving into the second phase, which is the next phase. That's maximizing flexibility here. So the key missions here is to enable robotics, communication standards, as well as utilizing AI. And once we go into the phase 3 and 4, of course, it would be difficult to make any prediction at this point of time, but it will be all about connected, variable, and wireless. So this is a concept that is behind the Industry 4.0 project at Bosch. And I will take some time to introduce to you each of the solutions that we offer in different phases. First is the now phase, which is connecting value stream. Now you have manufacturing side of the plant that's connected to the rest, which is being done with sensors, and you have networking gateways, and information will be shared across cockpits. This is not only applicable to manufacturing itself, but to development, engineering, and service, the overall end-to-end process for manufacturing. All of them will have to be connected, and we're taking gradual steps to provide the connectivity. And software will be at the center of that effort. So that's what you see in the middle of the slide here. So this is our key ammunition. So I have already introduced to you our 5 key strengths. So the black letters over here show what we're doing. And these are the solutions that we were able to forge as a result of the pilot projects. Now they're currently commercially available in the market, and they have been proven from our demonstration project. So let's first begin with sensor products. We have smart sensors and MIMS, that's MIMS. We're the largest producer for smart sensors for semiconductor industry. We initially developed that as a control system, ESP, for the automotive vehicles. But it evolved into the smartphone era. The same equivalent sensors are now used across the smartphone applications. So we have now become the largest smart sensor producer in the world. So smart sensor technologies can be utilized to the manufacturing through the MEMS. So the products have already been developed and they're being shipped out into the market as we speak now. And this is the actual application to the plant, starting from gateway. So machine level information and sensor level information is transmitted through sensors for use. And this is a solution that we offer here. It's called Production Performance Manager Protocol. So that's a solution that provides exactly that assistance. While we were working on this product, and we are now taking the leadership role in OPC and TSC standardization development because we saw the value in developing standards. So the marketing point for this solution is that we have these Industry 1.0 machines, which was actually developed by Bosch. It's called magnetic ignition. That's a predecessor to spark plug. That's a lathe that would be rotated, and you connect that to the sensor, and this can be connected to the cloud to do predictive maintenance. So what I'm basically saying here is that Industry 4.0 can be materialized not only on new machines, but it can also be implemented on old machines just by connecting the machines to gateway and sensors. So everything can be enabled. That's a key message here. And this is an example from our plant in Daejeon. This is the past on the left and the current now on the right side. So this is what our plants used to look like. You have graphs, you would have to replace the papers, and you would have but this is now all fully replaced by one touch screen. All the data that you see, MAS enabled data is all integrated and is provided on a real-time basis in a very transparent manner. And this is also applied to the logistics based on RFID through automation process. There's a high level of logistics connectivity. That is a basic configuration that you would see here. Our warehouses use this as a standard for management. And the photos over here that you see at the bottom, they're called milk runs. That's a use case from Daejeon plant. And for engineering automation, there have been some progress made. Control X automation is a new solution that we developed, which is based on Linux. And the goal is to become a smartphone version of automation. This is web-based engineering enabled. Apps are utilized to replace automation-related softwares with applications. This was released last year, and this is currently being rolled out. Digital engineering and services examples are shown here. This is Fonsei, which is a forest equipment provider. We did a joint venture with them. This is a forestry machines and equipments that use a lot of sensors and softwares. You do R&D, delivery services, as well as fleet management, as well as after-sale service. All of them are connected, and services are provided on a real-time basis. We can say that we have fully connected the value stream as a first phase of Industry 4.0. We have clearly define our concepts, and we do have solution suites. All we have to do right now is to expand this solution offerings further. Next is the second phase. This is where our current efforts are focused on. This is about maximizing flexibility. Not only the existing available technologies, but new technologies will have to be combined. There are 4 candidate technologies here that would have to make the final cut. We have 5G, H cloud, 3D printing, and AI. First, start with 5G. We want to have flexible production lines. If there are no wires, then we can solve a lot of problems. First of all, data cables will have to be removed, and then we would need 5G technology. 5G technology wasn't developed for the factory management. It was actually being developed as a communication protocol for smartphones, and it now has evolved into what we know as 5G. Reliability here, 99.9999%, and latency is 1/1000 seconds. Synchronicity here as well. That wireless communication protocol has improved such a great deal that it can even be used for the factory floors. All of the wires that are used on the shop floors are to be replaced with wireless connectivity technology. That is a key message here. Critical message over here is edge cloud. If you use edge cloud together with 5G, well, Bosch offers smart factory solutions. It's called APES, which is a robotic arm. All of these robotic arms are intelligent, so they would be quite costly, to be honest. But if you're able to solve this intelligence issue, you will only be needing actuators and sensors on the edge cloud, and the robotic arm can be utilized for different wider applications. So key technology here is, of course, 5G together with edge cloud. We're making thorough preparations for this stage. Reuteling is where our smart sensor factory is located. We have an R&D project underway in earnest. And at the end of next year, Smart Center Plant 2, which is currently being constructed in Dresden, this new wafer fab will be 5G ready right from the start, and it will become the world's first 5G ready factory. The solutions that will be utilized here will come from the existing solution sets, but they will be 5G enabled. We're just showing you what we have here. And they're going to be unveiled as we go along. So yes, you can pin a lot of expectations on our future developments. Yes, we're also involved in a lot of development, not only for OPC and TSN, but since we're very much focused on 5G, we're currently taking part in the 5G ACIA. We're the chair company. We're collaborating with a lot of companies to usher in the era defined by 5G factories. Again, we're very actively engaged in 5G related standardization initiatives. Next is AI and 3D, these 2 other pillars. They're core technologies for enabling our factories to become more flexible. So our target is that, our official target for the company is that by 2025, all of the products that are developed by Bosch will either be produced or developed by AI, or AI chips will be embedded. So it's just going to be 100% fully AI enabled. That is our company target here. And 3D printing, of course, is the most critical part when it comes to flexible plants for plastic moldings. For industrial purposes, to develop 3D printing processes, we set up a subsidiary company to carry out the development work. So I've talked about the vision of the future plant and also the solutions, our critical ammunitions that will enable that target. And 4 different candidate technologies that I've mentioned before. And if you combine them all together, the 6 ammunition and 4 different candidates, we're going to be very powerful as a player. Just like we saw transformation on our desk, now you only need your laptop. You don't need all the clutters in the desk. That will be exactly what we will see in the future with these different technologies. And that was high tech from Bosch. Thank you very much. Hi-Hi-Tak, thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. So you talked about the pathway for the plant development going forward and 5G vision as well as 3D printing technologies. So thank you very much for that presentation.
Now next, we will have Dr. Jens Geico, the CEO of SCI 4.0, who will tell us about the Industry 4.0 standardization roadmap. Now this presentation will be delivered via online, so now let us get connected. So now Mr. Jens Geico.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, you can begin your
Me in
speech.
Korea. Okay. So welcome to my presentation on our standardization cooperation on Industry 4.0 smart manufacturing. My presentation directly builds up on the wonderful presentation from JJ Lee from LS Electric. And this is very perfect because this complements each other very well. And let me start with the strategy of the German platform industry 4.0. The German platform industry 4.0 has set a strategy last year with 3 pillars, the pillars of autonomy, sustainability, and interoperability. And these are core pillars also for our standardization strategy. Today, I will mainly focus on the topics of interoperability, but as you can imagine, the other strategic pillars play also an important role. Having a strategy is one thing. To implement this strategy is the second story. For the implementation of the strategy, we have in Germany 2 organizations. The one is the so-called Labs Network Industry 4.0. They do pilot projects to implement the concepts for Industry 4.0. And this is mainly important for the small and medium-sized enterprises, as JJ Lee mentioned before earlier. And the second implementation pillar is for standardization, and that's where we come into the play. Both LNI and SCI 4.0 we cooperate closely together. What are our roles? First of all, when we started with the standardization work for Industry 4.0, we figured out that this is not only a cooperation between the standardization organizations of ISO and IEC and their national standardization bodies, but it will require also a cooperation with the consortia. For example, OPC UA was mentioned before. And this is one important goal. Second one is to internationalization, so to discuss our concepts at a very early stage with international partners. And within that, I'm very happy to be able to present here today our concepts and to strengthen our cooperation. Third pillar is the so-called Agile Standardization. This is a close relationship between the standardization activities we are coordinating and the pilot project of the Labs Network Industry 4.0. And here in the cooperation with Korea, I'm very happy that we have a cooperation with both, with the Labs Network Industry 4.0, but also within the S-Dialogue for the standardization activities. And last but not least, to orchestrate all these approaches means to have a standardization strategy to implement this. The Standardization Council Industry 4.0 was founded about almost 5 years ago by the German standardization organizations DIN and DKI, also by the Platform Industry 4.0 and the industry associations VDMA, Bitkom, and ZVEA. And so I can say greetings from DIN and DKI to all of you today. As I mentioned, One important topic for us is to have a standardization strategy, and we developed this strategy and published this in form of a so-called standardization roadmap. This year in July, we published the 4th edition of this roadmap, and you can see it's available in English free of charge for download. And we already presented this to colleagues from Korea. The roadmap gives an overview on our standardization activities, but also it gives recommendations for the future standardization work. And with that, it's a door opener for small and medium-sized enterprises. Here on this slide, you can see the link to the download, and also the link to a keynote from Michael Teigler, the Managing Director of DKI, on the future of standardization. So what are we talking about? Industry 4.0 has some value propositions, and mainly it's to connect business across company borders. That means the internet is available everywhere, simple and cheap. Devices are becoming intelligent, and using this in a small way opens up for a new world of services and functions. And Industry 4.0 with that connects all parties involved in business processes, manufacturing, and also the process industry. And so we have information from different partners of the supply chain, from suppliers, from customers, and so on. And the work pieces and machines, they manage the production autonomously, and there are transitions between companies and sectors. Within that, the asset administration shall plays a central role. Fortunately, the concept was already described by J.J. Lee earlier before. So the AAS is a digital twin within the manufacturing area. And this is a digital twin for physical assets, like here for a machine, but also it could be a digital twin for virtual assets. And in order to handle these complex integration we have for digitized companies, we have a link to the so-called reference architecture model Industry 4.0. This helps us to identify the different domains or aspects of integration we need. So we need an integration along the life cycle of a product. We need an integration along the manufacturing hierarchy, which is very much related to the automation pyramid we have so far. And also we have integration along the business layers up to the value network or the value chain. First of all, the asset administration shell is like a container to store data. It's a little bit like a zip file on your computer, and in the zip file you can have different files, and here these files, they are called submodels. So there is a standardized format for this container format, and there are standardized requirements for these so-called submodels. How these submodels are implemented, so this is here the standardized part here on the left side. On the right side, you can see here symbolized by these symbols here, the implementation within different formats. These different formats could be, for example, OPC UA for the manufacturing domain or Automation ML for the engineering domain. In addition, there are standardized principles for communication, identification, but of course also for security. Here in this picture, you can see again this partition between a technology neutral UML model and the mapping to different technologies. So in the end, we can say the concept of AAS is a combination of a technology neutral UML model and mappings to different technologies. And especially these mappings to different technologies are very relevant for small and medium-sized enterprises. And the importance is if they did this mapping once, then they are compliant with the concept of the asset administration shell, and then the data can be used as information within the whole company and can be also shared with business partners. And here, this concept enables a comprehensive interoperability, therefore, and we have a fruitful balance between, on the one hand, we have generic principles which are defined in international standards, and on the other hand, we can use specific technologies and have specific or flexible modifications of specifications. This could be, for example, consortia standards. we have on the one hand a wide acceptance, ideally worldwide acceptance, and giving a high security of investments to the companies. And on the other hand, we can consider domain-specific needs and also have an adoption to new technologies. For example, maybe in a few years, there will be a new technology within one domain, and then this can be adapted to the concept of the asset administration shell. As I mentioned, some parts are standardized, and here is a picture of the kickoff meeting for the project for the asset administration shell. That was beginning of this year, just before the Corona crisis emerged. So we have been lucky and could have a physical kickoff meeting. And fortunately, also there have been participants from Korea, and we were very happy to have here fruitful cooperation for this project. Within our cooperation, we identified several challenges for the future work. So on the one hand, we can say there is a need for an extension of this standard series for the asset administration shell. This has the number IEC 63278. So first of all, we define or we standardize the general structure of the asset administration shell. Next step will be on the interaction models, and also on the infrastructure services and on mechanisms for security. Another important topic will be the extension of so-called repository for semantic properties. That could be, for example, the IEC CDD, but could be also consortia-driven repositories like the E-class repository. And here also we need a seamless coexistence of these repositories, of the standardized one from the international standardization organizations, but also of the consortia-based one, like, for example, E-class. Another activity is the modeling of aspects of assets and this, within the so-called definition of submodels. Here, for example, the digital nameplate of a product is one example for such a mapping of a submodel or definition of a submodel. And here also, we think this could be a very important activity within the pilot projects under the cooperation of the Labs Network Industry 4.0 together with the Korean SME initiative. Next one is the link to Gaia-X. Gaia-X is a European initiative on cloud services. And here also we could establish some close cooperation because finally also cloud services which are seamlessly integrated into this AIS concept will be also very important for future business models. And then last but not least, the different mapping to different technologies like OPC UA and automation ML. As you can see, this is really a big work plan. Probably we cannot implement all of them together, but if we can realize some of these aspects, that will be a very important step forward. Finally, I can say if we achieve all this, then we can say that interoperability will be achieved, and this will be a prerequisite for new services based on data. And not just on data, but also on the information we can extract from this data. So some of you may argue, but today we can do a lot of things. Yes, we can do a lot of things. We can do a cloud, we can do network, we can do automation devices, connect them with the internet access, and we can have internet access based services, for example. But in the future, we can have added value by exchanging information between the value chain partners. We can go from internet-based architectures to internet-based architectures, and we have neutral and common standards for communication services and semantics across companies and sectors, and also across countries. And so we think a large number of new applications and business models will emerge. And with that, I conclude my presentation, and thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor, for your informative speech. It's been helpful for all of us here. Thank you, sir.
네, 지금까지 닥터 젠스 That was Dr. Jens Geiko. He talked about the Industry 4.0 standardization roadmap and the path forward for Germany. So thank you for that presentation. Next, we're going to invite Executive Mr. Wei Wei from IBM Germany to talk about AI and IoT standardization strategies and implementations in Germany. This presentation will be delivered in a virtual format.
Hello, sir.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Good morning. You can begin your
Good morning.
speech.
Okay, let me share my screen. Can you see the screen now? Okay, thank you. So thanks for the invitation. So my name is Wei Wei. I'm working for IBM. I'm responsible for the standardization in the area of AI, IoT, and Industry 4.0. I'm the vice chairman in German national body Mirror Committee for IoT and AI. So this presentation is to give you some our current activities in both mirror committees to in the context for AI and IoT standardization. So let me start with first the standard. So standard is actually the technical document being used as a rule, guideline, or definition. It is a consensus-built, repeatable way of doing something. So if we look at the first, in the history of the first implementation of the standard, so through the standardization of the screw thread size, it brings so much efficiency and dynamic in construct the machine and to build a machine from different vendors. So it becomes a major contribution for building the machine during the first industrial revolution. And since the standard is very useful and helps to people to building the things in the efficient, effective way, a lot of organization is created to develop a standard. So here is from the German perspective, and at the left side, we have formally recognized the Standard Development Organization. And at the international level, we have the ISO, who's dealing with the general standardization, and IEC, which is focused on electrical engineering and electronic devices. And ITU is with the main focus on telecommunications. And similar, we have in the European level, we have the SEN, SENELEC, and ESSI. And in the national level, there are different SDOs at the national level. In Germany, we have two organizations developing standard, DIN and DKE, while DKE is more dealing with electrical engineering and electronic devices. By DIN is more for more have a general focus and also IT. And besides the formally recognized Standard Development Organization, there are also consortia and professional groups such as IEEE, W3C, IETF, and you can see a lot of them. They are also developing standard, and they are very closely related to the SDOs in the ISO, IEC, and currently we have also a lot of standard is actually provided or information provided by their by the consortia and their contribution. And we have also close connected stakeholders who are very interested to the standard development. So in the European level, we have European Commission, we have a task force, and we have in the AI area, we have the expert, high-level expert group to looking at the need from the European level for the AI and closely communicated with the SENELEC. And in the German level, again, we have public sectors who's interested also for making for the standards, and there are also associations, and we have universities, researchers, industries are all closely related to standard, because standard will be used by most stakeholders and for building the machine, also to make the laws and produce the directives. So there are very close relations to that. And since German, from the German national body, we have both, we build both mirror committees for developing standard in IoT and AI. One of our current activity is the AI roadmap. It was started from last year in October, and this is orchestrated by Dean and developed by stakeholders from business and science, government, and society in a very open and transparent processes. And the roadmap will provide an overview of existing standards and specifications dealing with AI and provide the recommendations and to identify which area need for actions. And this roadmap will be published around the next month, so in December 2020. And it will head over to the German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy during the Digital Summit in December 2020. And this standard AI roadmap, we have 7 focus areas to look at. Most are closely related to German industry. So we have the first part is dealing with the foundations. So what are the foundations need to be established for building AI systems to the market? And the second one is ethical aspect. So what are ethical aspects needed to be considered for using and developing AI systems for autonomous machine and for automatic industry? And the third part is how to access and how to build an AI system with good qualities and what kind of criterion and conformity assessment are necessary for AI systems. And we have also looked at the IT security related, so how to secure AI systems against the cyber attack. And there are also the parts related to the industry automation and autonomous driving. So what kind of rules and guidance are needed, are urgently needed for this piece. And also the last part is healthcare. So how far AI can go with the healthcare and how can we dealing with the sensitive data in the medical area. And not only the German Mirror Committee are active in the national level, we are also active in the European and in the international level. So we have a lot of experts actively join the international standardization in AI and IoT. And currently AI and IoT are developed in the JTC1, which is the joint technical committee between ISO and IEC. SC41 is dealing with the Internet of Things and digital twin, and SC22 is dealing with the AI. So we have a lot of experts who leads the standard development in the international at the international level. So you can see here the 7 of the projects are led by German experts. So we have first 3 parts are AI related. So the first one is the AI foundational standard. So they provide what is the foundational concept for AI and to help the developer and designer to build AI systems and what kind of common terminology we should define, and so that the people can use the same language from which they are from the different backgrounds to communicate with each other. And we have also the AI risk management. What is the specific for AI-based system? What is the parts we need to consider for AI systems? And also, most I think coming in the AI standardization is really lots for the machine learning-based systems. So machine learning-based system is really different to the traditional rule-based systems. So we need to use a lot of data for training the systems. So how to improve the data quality so that the system cannot be biased for some things. So there are a set of standards dealing with the data quality management. So one of them is the data quality management requirements and guidelines for machine learning systems. And we have also foundational standard in the IoT area, which are the reference architecture, how to build a general IoT reference architecture, which can be applied for all verticals and to solve the interoperability problems and to make the solution more interoperable and more efficient to the market. And also the IoT vocabulary, so let people have the similar technical speech with each other. And we have also very active in the industrial IoT, which is very closely related here in the German Industry 4.0. And the last one is dealing with the security aspect. So we have, since one of the major character is the Internet of Things have a huge amount of devices. How to make the devices secure, how to make the devices interoperable with each other. So this is actually one of the concerns here in Germany, and we have also experts and companies, experts from different companies who closely working together, and we provided a proposal to make a generic API to solve this interoperability and security issue across the different among the different IoT devices. And now I just give you some example, because the standards are closely related to the solution implementations, because implementation is using standard. Here is giving an example from IBM. IBM, as you can see, IBM started at 2008, created an idea and bring it to the market. We call it a smart planet, because we found that there are some fundamental stuffs which can be combined each other. One is the data, one is the mobile technology, and other is the security. So everything, if we combine them, which can be applied for different verticals and make the solution more smart. So we call it a smart planet. So from here, we build the solution for the bank. We call it smart finance. And we build the solution for the logistic. We call it smart logistic. And we build a solution for healthcare. We call it smart health, and so on. And in 2014, technology for cloud technology is coming. And then we build all the solutions, we put all the solutions together in the cloud environment. We developed the IBM Bluemix, which is open. So all the experts and stakeholders can use IBM Bluemix to develop their solutions for different sectors. And 1 year later, the Internet of Things is coming. And then IBM side, we extended our Bluemix to be able to connect the variety of IoT devices, to communicate with them, to collect the data, to provide the solutions. We called it IBM Iot Foundations. And 1 year later, again, the AI, new technologies, and mostly coming from the AI and machine learning-based systems and blockchain. And then we merge our two platforms together. One is IBM Watson, is AI-based systems, and one is Ibm Iot Foundations. So we build IoT foundations with artificial intelligence capability and with blockchain capability to improve, to extend this solutions for building more effective and efficient and more secure solution for every verticals. And what I want to mention is in 2016, this is actually the first time in IBM history to build a strategic important research center outside the USA. They selected Germany to build a Watson IoT Center, which is a research center for developing IoT and AI solutions. And as we said, we use a lot of standard in the IBM Watson IoT platform. So IoT Watson platform has 4 major blocks of function APIs. So the first one is connect. So those API provide the interface to connect it to the variety of IoT devices. And then we have a block of API for information management to dealing with data, how to transform the data, archiving the data. And then we have a block regarding security related, using the blockchain to secure the data communication between the devices and the backend, the cloud part. And we build of AI and the cognitive capabilities in analytics. And what is important in the IoT area is actually the security. So here we use the most common recognized ISO IEC 27001 security standard. So the IBM Watson IoT platform is audited by a third company, third-party company. And the next, another part is we're using the MQTT. MQTT is the protocol which is very efficient and suitable for variety large amount of IoT devices and used for in the real time for the real time environment. And this MQTT is originally developed by IBM. We have first the customer project, and which find that there is current shortage in the TCP/IP and HTTP protocol. So the experts in IBM developed a very efficient MQTT protocol, which only focus on the devices which for used for real-time environment. And this will be later it becomes more and more popular and it becomes standard. And in the current years, it becomes the first protocol in the Internet of Things solutions. And beside the standard, we use also a lot of open sources to build a platform such as OpenStack, Docker, and Cloud Foundry. And to build the solution with IBM IoT Watson platform, you need to run in 3 steps. So the first is actually you connected the things to the platform using the existing 4 groups of API. And the second one is to feed after the things are connected. So you need to feed the data to the applications in the IoT platform, and you can also develop your application by your own. And the third step is actually what you need for doing the business transformation. And I have also posted here a link which we actually expanded, and we use the current IoT reference architecture standard 30141 to expand them to build a implementation reference architecture for different vertical domains, and to also provided some functional, non-functional requirements, which is generic for building IoT systems and solutions. And the examples for transform the business for IoT is really you can combine the IoT with AI and to do everything, and to improve the business efficiency, and to do the flexible maintenance and so on. So the data can be collected from different sources, and using the AI to provide a more dynamic result for that. So we have here is just three example of them. So I have also here the link. If you find the link there, we have many more use cases, and to provide you to give you some idea how to build IoT systems combined with IoT and AI. And the last slide is just wrap up an outlook. What is important for the AI and IoT area for the standardization? So the first part is the innovation. Innovation, collaterally thinking. So standard is actually only make sense when the technology reach some level of maturity at the market. So if the standard becomes too earlier, it will be the obstacle for the innovation. Therefore, the standard roadmap can help people to identify the gap and identify the needs for that. And this is also currently what on one of German committee, DIN and DKE, working together for the AI roadmap, for defining the old AI roadmap, which will be published shortly in December. And also broader participation. Now the vertical are broken, everything are closely related. So AI and IoT is so generic, they can be used by every sectors. So to make it a standard which can be used by all verticals, it requires really broader participation from the expert with different background expertise. And we need also well-organized cooperation and coordination. So in the JTC1, we have SD41, SD42 is dealing with the IoT and AI. And there are also other SCs developing their vertical IoT or AI related standards. So to avoid overlapping or inconsistency in this such standard, so well-organized cooperation and coordination is really the key for success. And the last part is, don't forget, we have also not only standard, we have open source, which are closely related. Looking at the TCP/IP, for example, one side, on the one hand, we have a TCP/IP protocol specification, which is standard, and on the other hand, we have the IP stack from the different open source, which implements such protocols. So in that case, it's actually the standard will be used for the implementation, and the implementation can collect some experience and give very useful feedback to the standard. So this is all my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wei, for sharing your knowledge with us. I really appreciate it. 네, 웨이웨이님의 연설을.
That was a presentation by Mr. Wei. He talked about the roadmap for AI and IoT standardization and the applications and implementation practices at IBM Korea, IBM Germany.
Next, we are going to invite the CEO of Thor Drive, Dong-kyung Kim. and he will tell us about the road to revolution of mobility driven by autonomous driving technology. So now here is the CEO, Dong-kyung K. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am the CEO of Thor Drive. My name is Dong-kyung K. Now, I actually delivered my presentation in last year's installment of this conference, and now it is a great pleasure for me to be back here as we discuss ways to promote cooperation in the field of standardization between Korea and Germany. Now, today, I will talk about the autonomous driving, which is one of the key technologies in the 4IR. And now also regarding the autonomous driving, I'm sure that you have all heard about the mobility. So now then for the mobility services, then I would also like to tell you about some of the use cases, because these use cases would also be very important for standardization in this field. So then for Thor Drive, what are the use cases that we have had in the field of autonomous driving, and then also based on these use cases, how can we further promote and advance standardization? So I would like to share with you my thoughts as someone from a startup. Now then for Thor Drive, I'm sure that this is a company that's highly unfamiliar to you, so I would like to briefly introduce my company. Thor, I'm sure you all know. Thor, I'm sure you know the superhero from the film Avengers. So for us, we also have a software that is as strong as the Thor's hammer. Now, we have had more than 10 years of experience in university research, and also for my company, interestingly enough, we have already over 100,000 kilometers of demonstration record in Korea and US cities. So through that, we have had the application of our technology for delivery services and also passenger shuttle services. So we have long demonstrated our technology in these areas. So now we started out in a university, so we were thinking about how to get a job as we were researching this technology. And then now later on, we thought that maybe we can start up our own company. So it was in 2015, winter, so around this time. So that was about 5 years ago. And then also at that time, Silicon Valley was a hot issue, so we also moved on to the Silicon Valley. So then with the Google Waymo or GM Cruise, so we are now thinking about competing with these global companies. And so in Palo Alto or the Mount Valley, so we have also started our delivery services there. And also inside Korea, in Yeouido, and in also some city areas, we have been providing our autonomous driving services. So now autonomous driving like Tesla or autopilot, so they are the keywords in autonomous driving. But autonomous vehicle is not a future, but I would like to emphasize that it is a reality. Now, autonomous driving or autonomous vehicles, I'm sure that you all have heard about Tesla or Google, so they have become household names. But then now, actually, the autonomous vehicle, the efforts for this have started close to 100 years ago. So in Broadway, in the US, so now they have started with the remote controlled vehicle. And then for the past 100 years, the humanity has also worked very hard toward autonomous driving. And then now it was in 2005, the DARPA's Urban Challenge that actually started the modern work toward autonomous vehicle, because the Waymo team that is currently leading the autonomous driving, now this is actually the team that won in this challenge. And then based on that, the Google autonomous driving business started. Then also many university teams are working on the autonomous vehicle, and then they are also starting up their own businesses. So we see that the autonomous vehicles have now really come close to our life. So also in the US, like Waymo, these teams are still working on the autonomous driving. Then also in Korea, maybe it's still yet unfamiliar, but then you see some of these cars, and we have been testing these vehicles inside city streets. And also in Germany or China as well. So in many countries, we see that they are already applying autonomous vehicles for passenger shuttle or delivery services. So yes, we see that autonomous vehicle has really become a part of our lives. But now, before talking about the ecosystem, I would like to talk about how the autonomous vehicles are now changing into mobile devices. So with the analogy of the personal computers and the smartphones. Now, these two devices, what are the common features? Now, for the personal computers, as you can see on the image, now, yes, all the students have one PC. Also, for the smartphone, I'm sure that you all have a smartphone of your own. And also, out of the 50 million population of Korea, 38 million smartphones. So it's a really universal device. So yes, both are universal devices. And another characteristic is that they are a combination of hardware modules. So yes, they are a combination of different hardware modules. Then also they have the operating systems like the Windows or the Mac. So they have the operating system as well as the apps. So the ecosystem is then the hardware module plus OS plus app plus user. That makes up the ecosystem. Now for the smartphone, then there's Apple and Steve Jobs. So they were the initiator of the mobile phone, and then now they also started the applications, which led to the creation of this ecosystem. So now then for the smartphone, then these are the companies that make up the ecosystem. Also OS, these are the companies, and also the Instagram, and so the app ecosystem, and then the users. So now once you have the four components, then you would create or build up this ecosystem. Now then likewise for the automotive industry, then yes, on one hand usually there was the OEMs and then the users. But then now when it comes to the autonomous vehicles, and also once we also have the services and the service importance growing, then we see that the services also become more important in the ecosystem. So now then we would have these OEMs and then also the OS developers for the autonomous driving, and then also combining them to services like the delivery services, so the apps that provide the services, and then the users. So then we need to have these four components to create this ecosystem for autonomous vehicles. So now then for this ecosystem, what would become different from the past and also for the standards, what are going to be different are not just the hardware, but then also for the operating system and also the solutions, and also the fact that we also would be getting a lot of information data out of them. So we also need to have the standardization for them as well. And that is why the Thor Drive or the Waymo, so these different companies are moving in their own directions for operating systems as well. But then we also need to have the standardization to make sure that they can be standardized into one ecosystem. Then we will also be able to create this ecosystem for autonomous vehicle at an earlier date. Then that means that the technologies related to the autonomous vehicles would also become part of the users' everyday lives. Now then, from the various applications perspective, what are the autonomous vehicle technologies that are available today, and also how these autonomous vehicles are performing services for everyday lives. So I would like to tell about some of the use cases. So now for the autonomous driving, then there is the conventional automotive platform. But then autonomous vehicle is not only for conventional vehicles like passenger cars or vans, but then it can be applied to all devices on wheels, starting from the small robots all the way to the large cranes or forklifts. So everything with wheels can be equipped with autonomous driving function. And also for in terms of the functionalities, then they would also have the communication functions and driving functions. So these are the functions that also need to be standardized as well. So we need to have the standardization for us to spread autonomous driving or autonomous vehicles throughout the world at an earlier date to people's everyday lives. So now these are the technologies that we have, and also some of the component technologies that need to be there for autonomous driving. One is the perception technology. So you see on the left-hand upper side, now this is called the LiDAR. So this is a sensor, and then also the camera sensor. So these two sensors are needed to perceive the surroundings. So as you see now, per vehicle, so you see, so that is the burning box per vehicle, and then also the traffic lights and also the lanes and also the traffic signs. So you would have to perceive them through cameras. Then also you need to localize yourself using GPS technology. So this is a technology called localization. So also my company, we have strength in this localization technology because we don't need to get the help from the GPS. So for example, the underground parking space or the building, so amidst the buildings, we can also localize the vehicle without getting the GPS technology. Then also the 3D HD map, so the 3D high precision map. So you need to have this map technology for the vehicle to be able to localize itself, to identify its whereabouts. So I would say that for the autonomous driving, this 3D map would be very important, and that is why there's also a race to develop the technologies for the 3D map. But then I would also say that this is an important infrastructure for the autonomous driving, and we see that the 3D map, now a lot of consortia are working on them. And also, this is where we are seeing different approaches in being developed. So this is where we also need to have unified 3D map. But yes, because this is especially because this is infrastructure, so this is where we need to have standardization as early as possible. And last is about the planning and control. So once you have the perception and localization, then the vehicle should also know how to control itself. So for example, how this vehicle is going to move, then I need to turn left or turn right. So you know how the difference between the beginning driver and the advanced driver is how to plan your next move. So that is about the planning and control. So it is for these component technologies that are needed for autonomous driving. So these are the generic technologies that are necessary for autonomous driving. And now for the autonomous driving and the component technology, it's different from smartphone in that if one component technology were to go amiss in smartphone, it's going to be not that hazardous. But then in the case of autonomous driving, if one technology were to be amiss, then it could be life-threatening. So in everything, we believe that safety is the most important. So we also have 2626, so this kind of safety measures. But so we also do the simulation, and we also have the demonstration in the closed field. Once we go through that, then we also have the demonstration in the open field test. And then we also do further software development. So we have this kind of feedback loop to make sure that safety would be demonstrated and developed. So again, safety is the utmost priority for us. And now for the applications, I would say that they are grouped into passengers and then goods. And in our case, we have experience in both fields. So in the case of Korea, in the SNU campus, and then also in Yeouido, the robo-taxi services. So we have done that. Then also in the Incheon Airport, Passenger Terminal 1 and 2. So once you're there, then you would also be able to see these driverless vehicles for the passenger shuttle. So inside and outside, so indoors and outdoors, we have had the passenger shuttling services. And also this is what we are actually doing in the Incheon airport. So you can call this vehicle by the app. This vehicle will come all the way to the passenger, and then the passenger will just type in the destination to be carried all the way there safely. So now carrying the passenger and then going to find the passenger. So through this process, we were able to get a lot of data. And also in this process, once again, we felt that we need to have standardization as early as possible, because now once we are to approach the customer, and then also what are the additional services that we can provide. So we have also been thinking about that. So this is a very good experience for us, and also for the goods delivery. So we also have the partnership with Asset Ace in Palo Alto, California, to do this goods delivery service. Then also in Korea as well, we have partnership with eMart, and we have done this goods delivery service in 2 apartment complexes. So this video will help your understanding. So in this case, now he's made his purchases, but then now let's say my luggage is too heavy, then you cannot have this delivered through our service. So in the kiosk, you would input your home address and also the expected arrival time, and then this will be delivered to you using this autonomous driving. So this is what we have actually done with eMart. So what the customer has ordered, then the employee would put this into the locker box that was designated, and then now this would be, so this is how this is being carried. And then the customer will get the message on where to find his purchases at what time. So then this would be loaded onto this autonomous driving car and then go through this very complex traffic and road. So going on this long journey. So I will not be able to show you all the scenarios because of the time, but this is how it is done. So this autonomous vehicle. So this is a level 4 autonomous driving. So this autonomous vehicle will carry the luggage all the way to the customer's home. And what we were able to, the kind of data that we could get out of this demonstration is that now in the case of Korea, the roads are very complex and also the apartment complexes are very complicated. There's a lot of parallel parking and also the children can jump out from nowhere. So we are able to get a lot of data, and also we could link this data to identify more use cases and also feed this data back into improving our autonomous driving. So this was also a very good experience for us. So for the applications, I would say that it would depend on whether this is a closed area or not. And if not, then are there only cars or also people? And let's say if it is closed area, then is it going to be like a factory environment where there are only a limited number of people available around, or is it going to be like somewhere like Yoido, more open area? And so this is the going from A to D in the order of complexity. So what we are planning to do is go all the way to D, so like robo-taxi, where we would be able to travel anywhere. But then we cannot just wait 10, 20 years to start from D. So I believe that we have to start from A to identify the use cases that where we can apply them. And this means that we see that new types of vehicles are also being developed. So in the case of the US now, this is a luggage carrying vehicle. So now traditional vehicle definition is that you need to have the back mirrors and then so forth. But then now there are some regulations or the laws regarding vehicles that are really not suitable for autonomous vehicles. So for example, the low-speed autonomous vehicles, so ASV. So we need to modify the regulations or the laws to be more suitable for today's LSAV. So for example, this is strictly for autonomous driving. So now there are no passenger seats at all. And also they would be traveling only in closed areas like university campuses or airports. So we need to have a regulatory modification to accommodate them. So this is the vehicle that you have seen earlier. So this is the size, and also the maximum speed is up to 15 kilometers per hour, and the passenger capability is 4 passengers. Then it can also perceive the garbage bins or plants, avoid them, and travel around. So of course, today you cannot go to the airports because of COVID-19, but then if you're there in Terminal 2, then you also see our vehicle. So it looks like it's floating around without wheels, but anyway, so this is called Air Ride, and this is actually being applied in real services. And the reason why we are using this in indoors environment is that, well, this year the law was modified, but then up till last year, it was legally not allowed for a vehicle like this to travel on the road, and the regulations are quite heavy, so that is why we started from an indoor environment first. Unfortunately, this was also in line with the Incheon Airport Authority's policy, so we are providing this service in the Incheon Airport Terminal. So it would carry people to the destination, and it would also go charge itself when it's necessary. So it's just about the domain, and also it is whether it's being applied outdoors or indoors, but I would say that this is a generic universal technology that can be applied anywhere. And now this is about the ecosystem, and yes, there are a lot of discussions about the standardization, and I believe that yes, it is moving in the direction for the ecosystem. For example, for the hardware, then the low-speed automated vehicle discussion is being done in the ISO TC204 Working Group 14, and also for the operating system and also the applications. So especially for the applications, then we see that for the communications or the nomadic devices, we see that in each respective working group, they are currently undertaking discussions for standardization in the different areas of the ecosystem. So yes, I do believe that we need to continue with these discussions for this standardization, because I believe that standardization is very important. So for the standards, yes, we also need to work together with so for the large companies like Bosch and so forth, so it's also necessary for these large companies, but also for the startups like us. So startups, small, but also very agile, because we're not bound by conventions. But then we do not have the kind of manufacturing or the production capability like the conventional behemoths. So then, in order to allow collaboration between the large companies and the startups, we need to have this kind of standardization, and also to promote worldwide collaboration. So today we're talking about collaboration between Korea and Germany, but anyway, so Germany has strengths in conventional machinery and also the technology, and Korea also has strengths in IT. So we can also collaborate further, and we can also reap even more use cases. And of course, I talked about the regulations against the LSAV, but anyway, so deregulations and also the regulatory innovation. So if we can have all these coming into play together, then I do believe that the autonomous driving will be very near you in the very near future. So that is all for my presentation. So yes, Thor Drive was delivering the presentation last year and again this year, and I hope to be back next year, where I will be able to discuss more of our use cases of our excellent technology. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So that was Mr. K delivering his presentation. Thank you. So he talked about the autonomous driving, the ecosystem, and also the software, as well as the applications, and also the need for regulatory changes to promote autonomous driving. Thank you very much.
Next is Mr. Kevin Benish from VD Institute. He'll talk about the standardization and certification in smart technologies. It will be done in a virtual format. We'll try to connect to the speaker right away.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you. I hope.
We can hear you too. You can begin your speech.
Thank you very much. First of all, many greetings to Korea from Germany, here from Offenbach. Unfortunately, one of the hotspots of Corona right now, but still we can have a good, I would say, location here to work. And many thanks to Katz and to KSA. I know them for long times, and thank you again for hosting such an event and organizing such an event. It's a pleasure for me to being part of the event, and I like to show you a little bit about standards and certification in smart technologies. And I know that the Korean country is one of a famous producer of smart products, and I like to show you a little bit about what we are thinking about. First of all, the previous speaker already ends with that standardization should be really in the lead here for new technologies. And I can also only say, yes, absolutely. So excellent presentation by my previous speaker, the CEO of Thor Drive. So we have here five main issues. Standardization opens up new markets, ensures fair trade because we have all the same level. Standardization is a driver for innovation. This was also shown by Mr. Bay from IBM. What kind of AA technologies will be placed into standards in the future, in the near future? Then standardization connects technologies across industry boundaries. So we are living in a world where more and more things get connected, and I think my speaker will be the end of the session will also go into this direction, especially regarding energy transition. When standardization forms the basis for testing and certification, it's quite important that the third-party certification gets the same rules. And what's also important, and this is done, for example, by the IAC CB certification, that also these tests are acknowledged by other testing houses. And what's very, very important for safety, especially, is that standardization makes liability risks manageable.
So in such complex products as we have seen today, it's very, very important that we use standards, because there we can also manage the risks. Yeah, standardization provides orientation in the complex works. Here some main examples. It started, I would say, standardization more than 100 years ago with safety, when more and more we had this topic regarding electrical installation, energy transition right now, IT security, and very, very important topic, performance and interoperability, and energy efficiency, which is also become more and more an absolutely hot topic, or is also regulated at these times. Yeah, when is a smart technology really smart? And I try to give you some kind of performance pyramid. It could be added for sure, but also what I like to show is that's really important, that it's covered by international standards. We have, first of all, the safety and energy efficiency. Here is more or less to show up legal compliance, technical standards, giving more guidance than only the law. Here, the product safety is guaranteed for this smart product. Then, for sure, interoperability, connectivity, self-adaptable is a very, very important feature which is necessary for, for a smart product. Then more and more becoming a really important topic, the necessity of having really cybersecurity preventions. We hear the daily news that we received attack all over the world, and we really need to find solutions where from manufacturer until the consumer gets really a safe feeling about his products. Then a very, very topic which is right now upcoming, it's the life cycle, material compliance. We have in European some regulation here, but we see really here upcoming more and more the requirements to make really life cycle assessments on the product. And this is also being of a little bit kind of smart. And then the outstanding performance. I think we are all agreeing on this, that functions and features and usability, that sometimes also company standards come here as an outstanding performance function for smart technologies. Yeah, and now going through this pyramid, yeah, we can see here quite excellent examples. Yeah, that's a smart installation of a photovoltaic system in the Alps. It's really nice. Yeah, you can get your current here. But what needs to be known is that here is a little bit tricky, because if you put it in your plug, you got up to 3 amps, and if you do it in the traditional way, it could be quite very, very dangerous, especially if children are playing with it. And here we also said, we need to get this technology into the market, but with the necessary safety. And here you see a special plug designed for it, so that it can work without any problems. And what's also important here, that the meter could run backwards at old systems. Yeah, it's also regarding that you need also upgrade your metering system in this area. Yeah, beside this, to close the loop of interaction, interoperability. I think that Mr. Riemer will tell quite a lot of here in the energy transition, but here you can see, if you look 15, 20 years ago, we had silos, and now you see the complete connection from the electric vehicle through the charging station. The metering is communicating with the supplier. You got energy management in your smart home environment. Everything is connected. You can use your apps on your iPhone to the current status of your system. And you see all these technologies are combined in this. And this is really a huge requirement that we see in the market, that all needs to be fulfilled. yeah, making things smart, from Coriolis meter to electronic meters. So since several years, the meters has been driven away from this old technology, and we are using smart meters. We have in Germany the special requirement also for the security part, that we got the smart meter gateway as a communication part at, and through this we get a really intelligent measurement system guaranteeing the safety of the data and the communication to the net provider. Yeah, and when you're getting safe communication, you're getting to the cybersecurity. And if we see here on the one side, we like to have these things all controlled and connected in our household. But when we be honest, we have more than 30 different protocols in the market. And you all know quite knowledge about the brands. But what we really see is that these systems can work together, but they are also safe. And right now we see here that the IoT systems are more and more working on the cybersecurity side on common criteria, so that you got really the protection against manipulation, protection against theft of data, checking encryption, checking passwords and everything. The standard of ETSI here has been launched this year. It's a quite basic for consumer products, and we think that this will be more and more implemented in products in the near future. Yeah, household appliances, you see how we are doing certification right now to this, that we are checking different kind of appliances which are intelligent against cybersecurity. And on the other side, Mr. Jens Geiko did a presentation regarding Industry 4.0. Here is a lot of work done in the past. There are right now the necessary standards for cybersecurity in the manufacturing environment available, and more tests are here required, especially for the components, but also the whole processes is observed here, that production is not interrupted by a cybersecurity attack. Unfortunately, we have daily reports here in Germany that that people try to attack these environments. And what's also upcoming, medical devices. Medical devices are getting more and more smart. And here's also an upcoming requirement for the necessary observation from the cybersecurity side. Yeah, and we are going the pyramid again a little bit up, and now you see this life cycle assessment. I think my personal opinion is that this will be one of the key functions for this century. Why? Because that this is driven by the next generation, not by me. I'm from a 70s, especially, or you can see all over the children in the work. They are really requiring that we get a little bit more concentration on how to preserve our planet. And within standardization, there's done a lot. This is quite positively. Here we have 3 areas: the material-related requirements, then material efficiency, recyclability. Also, and what is also upcoming is more and more the question mark to repairability. Again, it's very difficult to make on one side a really smart product and then completely repairable. It's things that are working very difficult together. But this is what I'm quite sure, that the designer will find solutions here to make these things happen. And then at least the carbon footprint, sustainability rating, that we get really a little bit aware of where the materials are produced and transported and what kind of materials are used. Yeah, when you see here such an overview, there's quite a lot of regulation in this area, but also a lot of things which is done by standards right now. They are adding on this regulation for the materials, the reporting on this REACH directive for environment. We are doing really on this eco design also tests on product life cycle. material efficiency, recyclability report, and we are also testing this PVC-free, halogen tested, phthalate-free tested, because this is more and more requested by customers and also by consumers. Yeah, we have people have quite a lot of allergies, and when they are really looking that a certification here is done against these materials. And we have these traditional labels from Eco Label, EP, Blue Angel, which is mainly known in the world. There are Energy Star and others, which here really also take their lead regarding regarding material efficiency. Yeah, and again, this pyramid which I showed in the beginning, when we're going up, when we're really looking regarding performance, performance, we see the latest technology, AAK, Ultra HD televisions, special tests on lighting. We are performing here with very, very special equipment tests to verify these things, and that really the manufacturers can show up. We have outstanding products here in the market, and this test has been really on several materials, on televisions, lightings, and one of these lightings, what's upcoming, is the human-centric lighting. I think that you're quite aware of that more and more the lighting should be adaptable to the daily conditions. It's a little bit different between winter and summer, but the lighting should be adaptable. Why? No? Why should the light in the room be adaptable? Because to synchronize with a biological clock. This has very, very important impacts. You got the better visual function, you got emotional quality, and biological impulses. Why do we need this? For example, sportsmen want to reach to being higher, better condition, and so. And with light, yeah, you can get their environment in such a way that they bring the highest possibility for running or jumping or something like this. So, and this is becoming more and more important, because also that you got you're not tired in the evening and something like this. And I think personally that this technology, human-centric lighting, will more and more very important, not only for special environments, but for standard offices. I think this will be very important, and for people who are working from mobile also. Yeah, and the good thing is that there are quite a lot of standards here out there, but still needs to be more standardized on international basis. Yeah, smart solutions. When we are looking to such a smart solutions like a human-centric lighting, first of all, be secure. Don't anyone control my house. Connect me easy. Be safe. Don't burn my house, because if a short circuit here, it could light a fire, and the fire could burn my house down. Be real. Don't flicker. Adapt light. We have now a special regulation from the next year that the European Commission says that the light may not need or have not to flicker, and then adapt light as human-centric lighting. Can it be repaired? Can I exchange the lighting equipment? And if you see, at least I only put a small portion of it, how many standards are behind. And this is quite a challenge for manufacturers, but on the other side, I think that even standardizations organizations like CATS and KSA here really give guidance to the manufacturers to help them to look into the right standards, or also to participate in the standards and bringing the standards technology further. Yeah, one of the absolute hot topics right now is the ultraviolet C devices, get rid of the virus. We have quite a lot of customers who are bringing up now products who have the range of 200 to 280 nanometers. This is extremely useful because this is some kind of disinfection of the air or materials. It reduces the spread and airborne transmission of infectious agents, so bacteria and viruses. But this is the other side, that the ultraviolet, the UVC, can be very hazardous to humans and animals. So you should be very carefully be used, because if you get direct contact with this lighting, you get really allergies, and it's very carefully to be done. And here also the safety information is very important, and you see that standards are ongoing, at least the technical report, the CEI organization of lighting is also discussing here quite a lot, and the health and safety community, the WHO, are also looking on it, on how effective it is. So I think that here will be quite a lot of standardization in the future, and that these products will become more or less be everything a part of our environment, and hopefully prevent in future from such pandemics solutions. Yeah, summary, existing standards will increase in requirements on software and lifecycle. I think this is definitely also what I saw in the presentations before. And then at least smart products are very challenged. On your one side, you can say, yeah, smart is usability and the function of cool functions. This is more that everyone personally, but there's quite a lot of things behind, as safety, as interoperability, as cybersecurity, as the lifecycle assessment. So from a point of view from standardization, I would say smart needs to be compliant with the legal requirements. You are using the international standards, and you probably have also your own high performance specifications that's so outstanding that you can really prove your product is very smart and at least complying with the standards and laws worldwide. Thanks a lot. Thank you for your attention. Many greetings to Korea, and I hope that I can be soon again at your country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kevin Benish, for your wonderful presentation. 네, 케빈 베니시님의
So there was a presentation by Kevin Benish. He talked about the importance of standardization and smart technologies. Thank you very much.
Next is going to be a presentation on the topic of digitalization of energy transition, the evolution of standardization by Jürgen Blumer from Lachman Solutions, and this also will be delivered online.
Hear me? Can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you too. You can start your speech.
Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can see your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation, and me and my company are quite honored to be part of this event. And I would like to thank Mr. Kevin Benish for the introduction and the first presentation to the standardization in Germany. Just a few words concerning my person. I am working on the standardization procedure now for about 10 years, and my core business is standardization of the smart metering systems in Germany. And my goal today is provide climb down into the machine room of standardization. And first of all, I would like to explain why it is so important for my company, Lachman, that we are involved in the standardization procedure. The company is a full service provider regarding all modules and services around smart meter gateway and the rollout of the intelligent metering systems in Germany. And so for us, it is very important that all these modules and services are standardized and work close together. In the best case, that the system, that the modules are interoperable. And that is the core of our business. And we are therefore involved in the standardization process with lots of resources so that we can move forward in designing components, modules, processes, and protocols that work closely together. And what I would like to show today is at first, what is the infrastructure we are talking about when we talk about smart meter rollout and intelligent metering systems in Germany. And then I would like to show what are the two approaches we have performed up to now in Germany. The first approach started about 2011, and the second approach we are currently in and which is still running. And then I would give a short spotlight on the challenges we have for smart mobility, because the event today is focused mainly on smart mobility, and I would like to show you what we are discussing in the standardization groups actually regarding smart mobility. So let's start. First of all, when we are talking about intelligent metering systems, smart metering, we are talking about a political project. It is not driven by technical issues, and when I explain it to colleagues in Germany, I always say the first start of the project was the directives from Europe, the domestic market directive in 2009 and the energy efficiency directive in 2012. And afterwards, in Germany, we transformed the directives from Europe into national bills, and the most important is the Digitalization of the Energy Transition Bill from the year 2016. And inside this bill, we have the first technical requirements that we have to fulfill during the rollout, and the first interoperability constraints that were written inside this bill. And the energy transition, the Digitalization of Energy Transition Bill includes a bunch of modifications to other bills, and it was a huge project, a huge political project, and it was actually the start of the rollout in Germany. And but you can imagine we are not talking only about political issues. It has also technical issues, and in fact they are not minor, they are really important. And so we started in 2011 with the first draft coming from our security agency, the Bundesagentur für Sicherheit in der Informationstechnologie. And this is the technische Richtlinie 03109. And this is the most important document we have in Germany, and all the standardization procedures are relayed on this document. And what the industry and the standardization offices of the industry recognized very early is that there are gaps in this first draft from the BSI. And so we started from the industry a kickoff in 2012, and we started the project Metering System 2020. And in 2013, the BSI finalized, first of all, the technische Richtlinie, the requirements for smart metering systems in Germany, and what is also very important, the protection profile for the smart meter gateway, which includes all the security constraints and security specifications that are needed to build a smart meter gateway. For the calibration authority was in 2014 with a new requirement list, and the industry jumped in 2016 with a requirement for smart meter gateway functions. And in 2018, we had the first certified smart meter gateway, and in 2020, we have actually the fourth certified smart meter gateway. This is a short review of what happened in the last years. And why are we doing all this stuff? So first of all, we would like to standardize the infrastructure in Germany, especially regarding security constraints. So when we are talking about a smart meter gateway, we are not talking about in the first shot about a metering system. It's the core is that we get a security anchor in the smart infrastructure in Germany. And this is the blue block at the bottom of this diagram: safe and secure operation of intelligent metering system and intelligent system components. So we started with the left column, smart metering, sub-metering. But what we like to achieve is that we have a standardized security anchor for all the other columns, including smart grid, smart mobility, smart home, smart building, smart services. Everything you could imagine what is smart and needs an IT infrastructure. And this is the approach we would like to fulfill in Germany. And we have therefore started to roll out this infrastructure with the electricity metering. So when we are talking about a smart meter gateway and the metering component inside the smart meter gateway, this is only a small issue in the complete project. What we would like to achieve is to have something that is interoperable, interchangeable, secure, safe, and can be used in all kinds of smart infrastructure challenges. And on the other hand, to make these infrastructures secure, on the other hand, we have also the challenge running in parallel to realize the energy transition. And when we are talking about energy transition in Germany, what we can foresee for the next years is that we have a shift of the usage of electricity. This is one major challenge we have to attack. And you can see these numbers of the Bundesnetzagentur. In 2019, we have a balance between renewables and other sources of electricity. But in the next 15 years, there will be a major shift. We will accelerate the rollout of renewable energy power plants. And this will change the way electricity is transformed through the networks and how the network can be stabilized. On the other hand, what we also can see is that we have a rise in the electricity consumption. So these are results of that what we would like to do in the project Energy Transition in Germany. And what is the link to the smart meter gateway I'm talking about today? And the smart meter gateway has to take control of this energy transition challenge, because on the one hand, we would like to control the production plants with smart meter gateways. On the other side, we would like to get the control on the consumption devices, plants, and everything that consumes electricity. This is an outlook on the year 2030 from the Ministry of Economics, and we are looking forward to this year 2030, and we have to design a smart meter gateway that is able to perform for this scenario. What is a smart metering system in Germany that is able to fulfill all these constraints I could only describe in short? So the smart metering system is not one device. It is a distributed solution of many components on different locations. So first of all, if we are on the user's side, this is the upper part, the lower part of this diagram. We have the smart meter gateway in the center. We have a modern meter measuring the usage of electricity. And we have a control box for control purposes in the home area. And we need a display for the customer. And this are all different kind of modules that have to work close together. So we need on every interface a standardized protocol and standardized processes that they work closely together. But on the other hand, what we also need are back-end systems, and we need massive back-end systems. We need a control box administration system. We need an administration system for the smart meter gateway. We need data receive systems, and what is not incorporated in these diagrams is we need time servers in the back-end, and we need decision systems who decide which kind of control can be performed on the control box. So smart metering is not one device. Smart metering is a complex area of complex modules working closely together. And that's the point where standardization jumps in. So these are the most relevant actors in the standardization process in Germany regarding smart metering. And we have first, I mentioned it, the BSI, the Governmental Office for Security in Germany, and we have the Calibration Authority, the PTB from Braunschweig, and what also was mentioned by Mr. Benisch is the industry with the standardization actors we are well known in the VDE. So, but what are the domains, the stakeholders are working on standardization? First, we have the security domain, and in the security domain, the stakeholder is the BSI, because it's the security authority office in Germany. And for the calibration, we have also a clear responsibility. It's the calibration authority, the PTB. And but in the data processing field, we have a more complex situation. We have several stakeholders that have to interact, and this is really a challenge because we have to work closely together, and we have different kind of views on what we have to do in the standardization process. So in the next slides, I would like to focus on this data processing standardization procedure. And the well-known process for standardization is to identify a problem, to write a standardization document, and to publish the document, and that is decided in consensus with all the stakeholders. But what we have recognized in the standardization process in the last years is that we need a very important second leg in this standardization process, and this is testing. Testing is a real crucial issue that has to be performed right from the start. So what was one of the very important decisions in our standardization work on the smart metering systems in Germany was that we linked the testing challenge more closely to the designing of documents, which in fact means at the very first step that we have two separated groups, one group writing the documents, the standards, and the other group writing test cases for the standardization. But the group that is writing test cases for standardization is also in charge to make a quality assurance process on the documents and to get through the documents if they are understandable and if the requirements in document are testable. And we change a little bit our procedure and move these working groups closer together, and this was a real step forward in the quality of the documents that we are producing in the VDE. So we have to link the requirements and the test cases close together because the test cases are based on requirements. Test cases design can improve the requirements, and the change in requirements leads to test case redesign. And this is also very important. So we have here kind of iterative processes that are ongoing over months, but the quality at the end of these processes is much better than in situations where the work on test cases and the requirements is not that close combined. So we started with in the standardization procedure of smart metering systems in Germany with the document of the BSI, and the document was 03109, and the building blocks of this document are these sub-documents. And when these documents were presented, the industry jumped in and analyzed this document, and we found out that there are lots of gaps inside the document, and we were not able to design processes, devices, protocols right from start from this document. And what is also very crucial was that what I explained in the slide before, we need also test cases and a test documentation. This test documentation up to now is either not complete or not existing. So we can see that the approach of the BSI to have a standardization document and sub-documents and all is well defined was not fulfilled in 2013. So this was the point when the industry jumped in, and I focus now on two documents: the core document of the standardization of the smart meter gateway and the document of the standardization of the smart meter gateway administration. And the industry inside the VDE started to fill the gaps with additional standardization documents, and one part of the document was designed by the FNN, and the other part of the document was designed by the DKE. That's the reason why there are different colors. And what we also tried to achieve is to deliver test cases and test documentation for all these documents. And I personally was involved in all the blue documents you can see on the screen now. And I can say that we got a good coverage by the test documentation on all requirements that we have defined in the FNN or in the DKE. And this was hard work over several years to get this document close together and to provide also test cases that can be used in test machines. The document of the BSI was discussed in the community, and there was a feedback about 3,000 comments on the first document of the BSI. And the DKE and the FNN had a discussion with the BSI in 2016 in a lesson learned process to look back and what we can do better in the future. And the first point was the high amount of comments from the industry. And the BSI acknowledged that an efficient comments management is a challenging task, especially if you have 3,000 comments. And but the BSI also stated that the know-how and experience of the metering industry should be introduced in the requirement specification at a more early stage. And we came to the point that we agreed that the DKE Smart Meter Gateway team can act as a challenge to knowledge for the BSI to provide better first drafts, and that we can reduce the high amount of comments that are triggered by such kind of document from a governmental office. So what we have done in the next step was to try if we can do better. So we had the challenge to introduce a new function inside an already standardized smart meter gateway. So there was a request from the industry in 2018. We went to the BSI and say, well, we need a new function. This has to be standardized and certified by the BSI. Please provide us a draft for this functionality. In 2019, the first draft from the BSI was provided to the DKE, and we started the development of data models and processes that we can incorporate the new functionality inside the smart meter gateway. And we finalized the enhanced specification in 2020, spring 2020. And in autumn 2020, we have the first certified smart meter gateway with this new functionality, and we have a published update of the requirement specification with this already in the verification process up to now. But what we can see from this procedure was the standardization process is too slow. It took us about 2 years for a functional enhancement that it is incorporated from idea to first running device. And what we also have seen in this process with the functional enhancement is that we need the expert knowledge, and it is a vital but rare resource. And we are limited in designing new functions, especially on the person who can design new functions. And this is very important that we recognize this challenge, and that we are all aware that we need all hands on deck to fulfill our duty to provide as fast as possible specification that bring the system forward. And without a test case standardization, we need test cases that are standardized. And as long as they are out of reach, we have a problem with our standards because they are not hardened. And so the test design is a vital part of the standardization and has to be close linked to the standardization procedure. And what we also need is that there is a balance between open for new business opportunities and defining framework constraints. An open standardization process has to be implemented. And open means, yes, there are constraints, but if there are new business ideas, we have to open our mind and open also the standardization process, that we can have a path for these new business ideas, that they come into our standardization procedures and into the standardized products as fast as possible. So this was 2018, and then we started a second approach of standardization regarding the smart meter gateway and intelligent metering system in Germany. And the process started in 2019. So at first of all, the Ministry of Economics and Energy recognized, yes, we have real world problem, and we have to face these real world problems, and we have to face them up front. So what we have been provided with from the BSI and the Ministry of Economics was, we had a new challenge map that is outlined here. And you can see all these red bubbles are smart meter gateways. So in all these challenges for industry, for customer homes, and for public infrastructures, we can see there is foreseen a smart meter gateway. And what is very important, that are really complex and different situations and business cases where this smart meter gateway has to be introduced. And to face this diverse environment in which a smart meter gateway has to be used was a very important step in defining new standards. So this was the starting point, facing real world problems, diverse environment, and then introducing an interoperable, interchangeable, standardized security anchor. So the product and system analysis has been finished at the beginning of 2020. Now we are in the second phase in this process. We would like to design a technical framework in which all these columns I explained a few slides ago are described, and that are and there are constraints delivered how we can write enhanced standards. And we are right in the middle of this process. And even yesterday, I was in an interview with the Ministry of Economics and the BSI to discuss how we can achieve the goal that we have technical constraints to start the next standardization iteration. So this is our working map regarding the different groups talking together. At the bottom are the three task forces, and I am member of the sub-metering task force. And we have a smart mobility task force and the smart grid task force. The interview yesterday with the Ministry of Economics was the members from the DKI inside these task forces discussing how to step forward in the standardization procedure. So the results that we are discussing with our governmental offices are then forwarded in the technical framework to the Gateway Standardization Action Group. And this is a very important group because inside the bill of the digitalization of the energy transition, there is foreseen this standardization group, and they have to provide a technical roadmap that is that should be then delivered to the industry so that the standards are in line, and that the industry can be assured to design the project that is needed in the future. So what we are trying to do now is to get the information from the industry at a very early stage in the standardization process to design guidelines that are in line also with the bill of the digitalization of the energy transition, and that on a high governmental level we have the commitment that this is a roadmap for the next years. To break this down in small PowerPoint bubbles, we have here an overview of the building blocks. We are currently working in this second approach of the standardization process. On the top level, we have the energy sector use cases, and we break these energy use cases down in system use cases on the second level. And then on the bottom level, we have these functional modules. And functional modules are clearly that where we are involved as the industry to design standards that describes these functional modules and how they interact together with standard protocols, with standard procedures, so that we can align on these building blocks of functional modules a system use case, and that this system use case enable the energy sector use cases. And inside the process, we have a small group working on smart mobility and how to standardize the usage, the needs for the smart mobility infrastructure. And I would like to spotlight in a few slides what are the challenges regarding this point. So first of all, in 2018, we recognized in Germany that we have a very important challenge, and that is the Act on Weights and Measurements. And we have had a survey from the Calibration Authority in 2018, and the result was that we have analyzed about 4,700 charge points of 10,000 overall in 2018, and the result was none of these charge points was compliant with the rule of law. And second was we have only one system with a type approval. So we had a real important challenge. We have to move quickly forward that we are in line with the calibration rules of law in Germany. And this was something that has to be fulfilled very, very fast. And there was an action group inside the Ministry of Economics. And the job was to get this calibration workload fulfilled. And here you get an overview. We have the result was that more than 5,000 charge points have to be rebuilt, and until about 2,500 charge points were not able to be rebuilt for AC only. And you can see this is a result when you are not using standards. So you are introducing a new technology, and at the very end, nobody cared in this early stage about the standards regarding calibration, and it was a major task to move these already existing and working infrastructure to calibration conform infrastructure. But we managed this job, and Ministry of Transport and Digital Infrastructure had foreseen that there are in 2020 about 15,000 charge points, and the status is actually 14,718 in Germany on the middle of July. And so we are right on track, but this was something that should have been foreseen forehand and not be reworked in the running process. The second major challenge we are deep in now in the smart mobility challenge is the introduction of the smart meter gateway in the smart mobility infrastructure. And the rule of law from the bill of digitalization of the energy transition says that we have to start with the rollout of smart meter gateways linked to the charge point infrastructure in 2021, 1st of January. But there's no technical strategy. Up to now, we are not able to introduce a smart meter gateway in smart metering charge point infrastructure. And this is also a consequence of the first approach, because 2 years we were focused on calibration issues, and now we jump the focus on the smart part, the smart and secure part of the infrastructure. And why is it that complex? So I provide you this monster of a map of processes and modules that are needed to melt together smart meter gateway infrastructure and smart mobility. So it is really complex, and we tackle this issue in our roadmap that is done by the Ministry of Economics, and the specification of the standards should start in 21. So we are right in the process of standardization of a real complex challenge, the digitalization of the energy transition, and the roadmap that is ahead of us is real complex. And yes, I'm at the end of my presentation, and you can see what we will done in the future, just to give you an impression how complex the work is. We are actually deep in the machine room of standardization. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. 네, 위르겐 블리메르님의 연설.
There was Virgen Blumim on digitization of energy transition, evolution, and standardization activities. This brings us to the end of the technology issue presentations. I'd like to thank all the speakers for their wonderful efforts. Thank you very much. A big round of applause to the speakers once again. So through this conference, we were able to understand and seek ways forward for standards cooperation between Korea and Germany, and lead international standardization activities in the fourth industrial revolution to position ourselves stronger as manufacturing powerhouses. I'd like to thank everyone for their efforts throughout the conference, and this concludes a Korean-German conference on technology and standards. You can also go to the YouTube channel to replay the video once again. Thank you very much. Have a safe trip back home. Thank you.